Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 4th, 2021 public hearing of the Planning Commission on Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation is encouraged. To minimize feedback in the audio, all participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should raise their hands or unmute themselves and turn on their camera to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. Please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for the local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. That's planner@plancom.org. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. With that, I'll please ask the clerk to go ahead and call roll.
Good evening, commissioners. Bernstein?
Here.
Cardenas? Cardenas? Dickerson?
This is Matthew Pleasant sitting in for Amber Dickerson.
Thank you. Dix?
Here.
Handy?
Here.
Kress? Kress? Linkett?
Here.
Marino?
Here.
Howell?
Here.
Rodriguez? Here. All right, thank you. You have a quorum.
Did he call me?
Oh, Joseph.
I mean, I'm here, but I
Yes. Joseph, okay. I'm sorry for that. You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, on to our first item. It's action item 2A. We have Hccpa 19-09. It's a map amendment for northwest of Boyscout Road and Grove Lane, and the presenter is Tony Garcia.
Good evening, commissioners. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. Your first item up for your consideration this evening is Hccpa 1909. This is located northwest, general vicinity northwest of Boyscout Road and Grove Lane. This is a plan amendment hearing. Next slide, please. The site is located in the northwest Hillsborough area of the county. It is in the rural service area, and it is located within the Keystone Odessa Community Plan boundaries. Next slide, please. This is a privately initiated map amendment. It is approximately 5.1 acres in size. As you can see by the slide, the little triangular piece here in magenta is a subject site. There are a variety of wetlands in the area, as one can see. Several little smaller residential communities, one to the south of the site, one to the north of the site here. If you can see follow my cursor, there are some smaller residential enclaves here surrounding some of the lakes up in the Keystone area, and of course further to the south of the area. It's largely rural, large acre lots. There are some older established suburban communities that were there prior to the year 2000. So that's pretty much the character of the surrounding area. Next slide, please. Again, the site in question has a future land use category of agricultural rural 1 to 5, as is the surrounding land use for the majority of the site to the north, to the west, and to the north. Directly to the south is agricultural estate, which is 1 to 2.5, and there's some residential 1 further to the south. Next slide, please. The request is to go to agricultural estate 1 to 2.5. Next slide, please. I'm going to show you some slides of the subject property in addition to some of the adjacent properties to give you a feel of the character of the area. This is one of the slides of the subject subject site. Next slide, please. And here is another view looking further on down into the property. It's undeveloped, of course, with some vegetative activity on the site, some mature and native vegetative activity. Next slide, please. This is in the surrounding area. These are some stables and some agriculturally related non-residential uses in the surrounding area. Next slide, please. You can see the rural characterization. There is a wall further down for the one of the suburban enclaves in the area, and of course you have some pasture land here. These roads are pretty much undeveloped. It's a 2-lane highway with the soft shoulder roads, characteristic of the rural character of the area. Next slide, please. And one more picture, just a different perspective of some of the agriculturally related uses in the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So the adopted piece has a land use of AR, agricultural rural 1 to 5, which would normally allow 1 dwelling unit, or for a non-residential perspective, 40,000 square feet or a 0.25 FAR, whichever is less intense. The request is to go to agricultural estate 1 to 2.5, which in most cases would allow 2 dwelling units, and where your your non-residential potential would be 20,000 square feet. It actually goes down, or a 0.25, whichever is less intent. So the asterisk is there to tell you as a standard, this is what your dwellings would be. However, there are wetlands on the site that reduce the uplands to under 5 acres. The wetlands density credit, which would normally be able to be used in other areas of unincorporated Hillsborough County, is not applicable in the Keystone Odessa Community Plan. So there's 2 things you can't do in the Keystone Community Plan. You can't apply wetlands density credit, and you also cannot use the flex provision. So those are 2 things that cannot be done. So this puts this particular applicant into a situation where the AR 1 to 5 will not allow them to realize the 1 dwelling unit, which is why the option would be logically to go to the AE 1 to 2.5 to allow, in this case, really only 1 dwelling unit, because the wetlands density credit would not be applicable on the site. Next slide, please. As it relates to consistency with the future land use element, Objective 4 specifically, which talks about the rural area general character of the rural service area in unincorporated Hillsborough County, Policy 4.1 encourages standard densities of AR 1 to 5, so 1 units to 5 acre as far as the standard for the rural character within the rural service area. Specifically, as it relates to the livable communities element, the Keystone Odessa Community Plan discourages plan amendments to densities higher than 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres, and no density credits would be assigned to wetlands areas for new development. Next slide, please. So Planning Commission staff recommends that the Planning Commission find Hccpa 1909 inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan and forward that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration, due to the fact that the recommendation is on its face inconsistent with the character and what the guidelines are as far as dealing with the wetlands density credit within the Keystone Community Plan. That concludes my presentation, Commissioners. I'm available for any questions at this point in time, or if you'd like to wait till the conclusion of the applicant's presentation to offer up any questions, I'll be more than happy to comply either way.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Would the applicant like to go ahead and make their presentation?
Hear me yet, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Todd Pressman. Pleasure to be here this evening virtually with you. I'm a representative for Mr. Paul Capella, who is monitoring the meeting. My address is 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg, Florida. And this is a presentation for Hccp 1909. Mr. Garcia did a good overview for you. If we go to the next slide, please. As you know, we're located in the northwest corner of the county. Next slide, please. And as the property appraiser has it, as Mr. Garcia had it. Next slide, please. The existing future land use map, as Mr. Garcia pointed out, there are very similar size lots proposed at the 1.2.5 to the south, and running to the north, you'll see that the lots are generally the same, maintaining a rural basis. Next slide, please. Proposed future land use map, which again, Mr. Garcia showed you. Next slide, please. And again, matching to the south, also a bit to the north in steeplechase, and then maintaining a rural character as this site would, along with the other lots as you see running north on Boyscout. Next slide, please. So the issue very simply is we currently are agricultural rural at 1 unit per 5 acres and proposed agricultural estates at 1 unit per 2.5 acres. Next slide, please. And Mr. Chairman and board members, it's a very simple goal. It's to allow 1 residential home on 5 acres. It's about straightforward in terms of a goal request, as you see. Next slide, please. What does the Planning Commission staff report tells you? It tells you that the proposed request would not result in a radical departure from the existing large lot, mostly rural character of the surrounding area. I think that's critical and crucial for your consideration. Next slide, please. The Planning Commission staff report also says to you that the size of the subject site and low development potential would be in line with the development pattern of the surrounding uses in the area. That's a critical, crucial second finding for your consideration from the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. Again, bringing home future land use map and the size of the lots in the area, as indicated from the Planning Commission report, it would not be a departure and would not be a radical change. Next slide, please. Mr. Chairman and board members, it's really layers of regulations and policies and requirements from the comp plan, resulting side of the property, wetland areas, and the community plan that literally make this parcel unbuildable, unusable, and undevelopable, if that's a word, but undevelopable is the status of this property. So this is a sizable piece of property in the county, 5 acres, and it is unbuildable and unusable under the many layers of regulation. Next slide, please. The fact is this, Mr. Chairman and board members, is that if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. This will be 1 residential home on 5 acres. Anyone passing the site is going to see 1 residential home on 5 acres. Anybody walking by the site is going to see 1 residential home on 5 acres. Next slide, please. Now, one of the results of having unbuildable land is that, and one of the neighbors did send a letter in, or I'm presenting a letter to you, Miss Ann Winograd, who's indicating that the property sometimes becomes an eyesore and a hotspot for random people dumping throughout the dumping trash and other elements on the property. She knows, and as Mr. Pellet indicates, and he's made many efforts, he has endeavored to clean up debris on the property in the past, but not having any residential or any kind of presence on the property allows the site to become a bit of an eyesore and a bit of a problem. And in her letter notes that she would encourage some type of residential use there, which would preclude future dumping. Next slide, please. Rural residential community character, the Keystone Odessa community desires to retain its residential character as an area of lakes, agricultural activities, and homes built on various lot sizes and a scattered development pattern. We believe that that is the case, that what we're presenting does meet that character. Next slide, please. It's our opinion that the objective of the Keystone Community Plan is to prevent urban sprawl and to not increase residential density within the Keystone community. Mr. Chairman and board members, this comp plan amendment does not set a precedent to increase residential density in the Keystone community because it does not increase residential density. Next slide, please. So in summary, very clearly, very simple, seeking 1 residential home on 5 acres. Planning Commission report tells you it would not result in a radical departure of the character in the area and would be aligned with the development pattern. It's the overlay of rules, regulations, etc. to make the 5-acre lot unbuildable for one home. And we believe that it clearly meets the intent of the Keystone Odessa Community Plan character. And with that, we appreciate your consideration. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now, we had a couple people sign up for this one in the public comment. The first person we have up on our list is, and forgive me for the mispronunciation of names, if any, Jamie Sager, or Seeger.
Hello. Okay, so my name is Jamie Sager, 9103 Roberts Road, Odessa. I'm a resident of the Keystone area. I have to say I am opposed to this plan amendment and do support staff's recommendation of being inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough comprehensive plan. The Keystone community is a rural service area. We do have guidelines, and it is simply inconsistent. Living in Keystone, we do need to deal with wetland setbacks and surveys on personal property. It's what we need to do. We comply. We need to do, I mean, everybody does. And we need to keep the decreased density. Unfortunately, I do not believe that we can allow anything to pierce the Keystone Community Plan and thereby the Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan, because it will set a precedent and allow others to potentially do the same thing on a much larger scale, which we have seen over the past several years. This is absolutely not at all, with zero doubt, what the Keystone community would not want this. I'm sorry, I have evaluated this one request, but I cannot support it. It could potentially open up an increased density in the area, and we need to decrease sprawl. So unfortunately, I have to oppose this and do support the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. All right. Next up in the public comment, we have Barbara Adderhold.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Barbara Adderhold, P.O. Box 272-879, Tampa, Florida. I am also opposed to this plan amendment and do support your staff's recommendation of being inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I am not opposed to the one home, but what I am opposed to is changing the land use designation. Mr. Pressman says that it would not be a radical departure from existing nor radical change. And while that is true, but it would be a change in land use designations. And what that would do, that would increase the density. And saying it does not increase residential density because it doesn't increase residential density doesn't quite make it in this one. You say that it's only for one house, but it really does more than that. It pierces the Keystone Odessa Community Plan. How do you say no to the next applicant that wants to change the land use for increasing density? I submit to you that you cannot. The Keystone Plan was adopted in 2001. That was 20 years ago, which makes me feel rather old because I was on the Planning Commission at that time and also was, I don't think we called them stakeholders at the time, but I was a stakeholder in putting this plan together. The applicant purchased the property in 2004, according to the property appraiser's website, 3 years after the plan was adopted. There were known wetlands on the property. It is unfortunate that the applicant did not do his proper due diligence, and I do not think that the Keystone Odessa Community Plan should be pierced and suffer for his lack of due diligence. If there is another way to get a single-family home on this lot, then let's talk about it, but it's not through a plan amendment. Please consider that this plan amendment sets a precedent. Please consider that it pierces the Keystone Odessa Community Plan, and please do not approve this plan amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Next up in the public comment, we have Janice Mansun-Hing.
Good evening, Honorable Planning Commissioner. My name is Janice Manson, member of the Keystone Civic Association. My husband and I retired as years long and veterans to move it to beautiful rural area, which is 16740 Worley Road. I am opposed to this plan amendment, and I am requesting that you do not approve this amendment. Our Keystone Civic Community Comprehensive Plan was filed with Hillsborough County in 2001, and the mentioned applicant purchased this property approximately 2 years after the comprehensive plan was in place. If this PA was approved, it would set a precedent, create a hardship on our community, and pierce our comprehensive plan. You know, the issue is that changing the future land use goes against our community plan. If this was approved, how do we defend against someone else that wants to come and change a future land use? This would be a domino effect, and against our community plan, it would absolutely pierce our community plan that has been resolute for 20 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Next up in the public comment section, last but not least, we have Paul Capella.
Yeah, I'm the property owner, and I'm going to yield to Mr. Pressman for final comments.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Mr. Pressman, back to you for a 3-minute rebuttal.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Please. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and board members, and with great respect to the 3 neighbors who spoke. In our review and in the general direction of the Keystone Odessa plan, we feel that it primarily addresses and concerns itself with large-scale development, large-scale residential community. This is a very small parcel in regard to the entire Keystone Odessa area. And when we talk about piercing or creating a precedent, you only have to look at the 2 comments by the Planning Commission staff, which tells you very clearly that it would not result in a radical departure from the existing large lot, mostly rural character, and it would be in line with the development pattern of the area. That's not a precedent. That's a situation that is currently existing and is acceptable and is equitable in that immediate area. I'll say again, anyone driving by this site is going to see 1 home on 5 acres. Anybody walking by is going to see 1 unit of 5 acres. I'll repeat the word, I think that's equitable, and clearly that is not an affront, in our opinion, to the Keystone Odessa plan. Mr. Capella, this is a single residential property. This is not a large development. It's not a site that is an affront to the community plan. And we appreciate the consideration of the board and of the neighbors who took the time to speak this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now over to my planning commissioners for comments or questions on this item. Commissioner Handy, yes, please.
Having been someone as a member of the public and the community that was very heavily involved in community planning, only to have it, dare I say, gutted or at least misinterpreted at best, I would side with the inconsistent finding, and I would side with the framers of the Keystone Plan. It does us no good for the communities, the neighbors. It is a huge undertaking for citizens and private community members to go through this process, only to have it ignored when something like this comes up. So I agree with the idea that it would set a precedent. Clearly, it is not what the community had in mind when they drafted and their community plan was passed. And clearly, the due diligence remark by Ms. Alderhold is clear. So I would side with staff findings on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. Yes, Commissioner Dix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tony Garcia, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask a couple of questions.
Okay.
Mr. Garcia, you've been doing this for a long time, so I have just a couple of questions. Let me give them both to you real quick because it may affect how you answer this. The property that is right now, the 5-acre property, so much of it is wetlands, and the debate about whether one house could go there. Can you tell us what, if anything, right now, house, commercial, et cetera, what would be permitted, a permitted current use on that property, number one? And then the other part of my question is, if we were to adopt the future land use change as requested, it makes a funny triangle trapezoid piece of property that is not an enclave, but it kind of sticks up out by itself. So I would ask you, as somebody who's done this for 30 some odd years, does that give you any pause to think, well, this is a weird shaped thing to be doing, to have a semi-enclave sticking up like that? And does that then cause any future concerns to the property to the west or to the property to the east, if they in turn would want to request the similar change that is being requested now, which would in essence allow several pieces of property to be built in that larger triangle? So that's really, I guess, 3 questions, but I think you got them all.
Yes, thank you for the questions. It's not really an enclave as we're talking about a single unit, number one, so it's really a single unit. As far as I know the property to the south has been acquired by ELAP, so as far as the developability, I don't see where there's going to be any developability to the site to the south. I think it's only logical to think that there could be some potential or interest of whatever the property owners may think that abuts the property to the north. I would have no idea what would be in the mind of that individual if they wanted to have any interest whatsoever in developing that site. If they did, I think you probably would have heard something from them in this hearing, since they were probably noticed about the site.
I was actually referring to the west and the east, 2 adjacent properties. If you actually...
To the west, I think is part of a larger piece. It's part of, I think it's some groves. Yeah, when you look at these are environmental lands to the west of the site here. I mean, that's not developable anyway. And to the south over here, you've got a water body. So I don't see where there's anything this piece, I believe, is the piece that opens up into this piece right here, opens up into this larger piece down here. So I don't believe any of this. So you're really looking at maybe a couple of these pieces right here. This looks like it's non-residential over here. Seems to be a track. Maybe it's for a horse farm over here. That's what I would guess. I don't know. But as far as the developability, it's very limited. To get to your question about the developability of the site, it has and I'm going to get into, just to let you know, it has a zoning of AR. So there's a variety of things that could be done from a non-residential perspective should the applicant be able to move forward with development services and seeing what kind of potential uses he could put on the site. That is really out of our realm as far as the specific types of uses that could be allowed on the site. We generally can let you know there are agriculturally related uses that could be placed on the site. You could do a tree farm, you could do a variety of things that would be more rural in character and more into the uses that one would normally see that are non-residential in the area. But as far as the residential potential, that does not exist based on the circumstances that surround this particular site, based on the unique situation that it happens to be within. Does that answer your question sufficiently, sir?
Yeah, he looks like he's nodding.
Yes, I was just pondering. I did not realize that the property, when you talk about the ELAP property, but you're insinuating that the property essentially to the west of it, the yellow property, is also ELAP.
Well, the property to the south is an enclave. It's a residential enclave. There are existing homes in that yellow part on the map, if you were to see that again. Those are all existing homes that were built quite a few years ago, probably under what would be allowed under the agricultural estate. all the land use categories that you see in the area are categories that were actually given to this area at the inception of the creation of the future land use map back in the late 90s.
And other than granting the request for a change, you don't know of any way to allow a single-family house built on that property?
If I did, I would have been more than happy to pass that information on to the applicant so that way they could have moved on with their piece of land. But we have had several meetings with Development Services prior to going down this course. Unfortunately, because of the unique aspects of it, and as Mr. Pressman has correctly stated, there are some circumstances that really encumber the piece to not be able to under this particular land use, and based on not being able to apply the wetlands density credit to really be able to put the one unit on there. But that is again what has been established and has been defended for the last 2 decades for the Keystone Odessa Community Plan.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Dix. Commissioner Handy. Oh, wait, let me go to Commissioner Powell. He's got his light on, and then I'll come to you next, Commissioner Handy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was actually, I think Tony sort of touched on it. The homes there just to the south, those currently are the agricultural estate, 1 to 2.5, correct?
Correct.
And those were put in place before the community plan or after the community plan?
I think some of them were built after the community plan, but in accordance with what the guidelines were, because that land use existed. So the plan does have provisions to allow clustering of lands to preserve environmental lands in the Keystone Community Plan. So you do have the ability to go ahead and subdivide the property in a manner so as to preserve the surrounding environmental uses within the surrounding environmental lands within the area.
Okay. I guess I would just looking at the map, I mean, it doesn't seem too much like an unreasonable request. I do, hear Commissioner, Handy's point about, holding to the community plan, and I think that, given that they just are not able to use the wetland density credit, that it's sort of a shame that we can't, or the applicant is, sort of in a situation where it's just, it's the words I'm looking for, red tape. It's the only thing I can think about. So maybe, are they allowed to do a PD there for one home?
No, you cannot do a PD for one home because it cannot meet the density requirement.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Handy.
Yes, well, just following up briefly, I would be a little bit more sympathetic to the landowner's cause also, if it were not for that due diligence statement that one of the residents brought up. I mean, this community plan and that land use was in place when this parcel was purchased. But my question is, has an actual wetland delineation been conducted? Because I'm looking at Google Earth and zooming in, and I am seeing more wetlands like right up against Boyscout Road, like in the very corner of that parcel, and continuing, it looks like a little creek system that continues off-site to the other side of Boyscout Road. So, so first question, has an actual wetland delineation been conducted?
According to the applicant, there was a wetlands delineation conducted. It has been several years, so I don't know if he's had one done more recently. He did talk about that there is a stream, I believe, along one of the, I don't know if it's the western boundary or the eastern boundary. Mr. Coppola could probably allude to that more clearly than I could if you wanted to ask him that specific question. But I do know that there is that stream on there, but to what degree the wetlands have either increased or diminished on the site since the last delineation was done, I have no idea.
Okay.
I could chime in a little bit on that if you don't mind, please. The delineation was done about 20 years ago, and delineations, I believe, only last for about 5 years. And Mr. Garcia is in fact correct that there is a stream that runs through that property that originates from the lake across the street at Steeplechase. It runs under a culvert under Boyscout Road, runs through the backside of my property, and then through another culvert through a berm that's on the backside of the property. There's a little bit of a catch basin on the west side of Boyscout Road. So between the stream and the basin alone, you're probably talking at least somewhere between 1/4 of an acre to 1/2 an acre of definitely definable wetlands. If it was redelineated and there would be an increase in uplands, it would not get to the full capacity of 5 acres to allow somebody to build 2 homes on the property, considering the county's position on the density, applying the density for the wetlands. So there's no way to build 2 homes on that land at all, even if it was redelineated to increase the land use for redelineation. And if I could point out one other thing regarding Mr. Garcia's comments, he said the word unique aspect of the land. That is in fact a 100% true statement. You're not going to find another piece of land anywhere in Keystone with a unique set of circumstances like this. The land directly to the south of my land is in fact owned by ELAP. And it's an entry, it's about 250 linear feet on Boy Scout Road that provides access to the remaining 260 acres in the back. My parcel and the parcel that's owned by ELAP were part of one parcel at one point, and they were divided just before I bought them by CB Groves. And yes, back in 2004, we didn't have access to the information we have now available. So it was a short period of time that Keystone plan was in place, and I was not aware that it was not a buildable lot applying the density credits for the wetlands. Precedent is a legal determination. And to say that this property would set precedent for anybody else who would try to increase the density from 1 domestic unit per 5 gross acres to 1 domestic unit per 2.5 gross acres is not true, because you would have to have the same circumstances in that future applicant as I am applying for here. Precedent is based on the same circumstances. You're not going to find anybody with the same circumstances that I have it and the characteristics of my land to set a precedent for any other future application that would come in to ask to go from 1 domestic unit to 2 domestic units on 5 acres. The simple fact that I'm foreclosed from actually putting 2 domestic units on it alone is completely distinguishable than anybody who would want to try and increase the density. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Handy, did they answer your questions suitably there? Or?
Well, apparently there's a 20-year-old wetland delineation, which probably doesn't tell us quite enough, but one of the reasons I was asking is because will there be sufficient buildable uplands, even for just one residence, with the required setbacks, the EPC setbacks from wetlands? And if the answer is no, or maybe, then we're just chipping away. So the next thing is that we need a variance from a buffer or a variance from a wetland setback. So I don't know if that's the case. I'm just saying that, again, there's not that much information, and there is a reason that these types of issues were covered by the Keystone Community Plan, because they didn't want that to become an issue where the buffer is chipped away, the wetlands are compromised, the densities and the rural community is compromised. And so again, I would side with the staff's findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
If
Handy.
I can say, could I have a follow-up to that, please?
No, you cannot, unless she asks you a direct question. All right, we're kind of moving on, but maybe Commissioner Marino might have some questions of you.
Thank you.
So give it to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Tony, and I'm taking notes and I'm looking back at things and I'm trying to figure this out. So bear with me for a second here. The property as of now does not necessarily have the accumulation of acreage to build a home. Is that correct? Because I'm looking at the property appraiser. It's kind of split between lowlands and acreage. Is that correct? Tony?
Yeah, it does not have the sufficient acreage of uplands to qualify for a one buildable lot under the AR 1 to 5.
Okay. And then, so following up on that, the reason why they have to go for agricultural estate is because they want the ability to change the wetlands in order to build a house.
No.
That's a question for Mr. Garcia.
They don't have to change the wetlands. The wetlands, and Ms. Handy actually was correct about it. I mean, ultimately what would happen is that you'd have to have a delineation to show that you have at the very least 2.5 acres to be able to build one unit on the site. We do not know at this point in time if that is necessarily the case based on the age of the delineation. We do know that it is enough wetlands that it does not meet the 5 acres. It would be under 5 acres of upland right now. So the change to 1 to 2.5, in theory, would be that there's enough acreage there of uplands, 2.5 acres of uplands, to allow the development of one residential unit on the site.
Okay, and then so my last point about this is going back to the Keystone Odessa Community Plan. I grew up in this area, and I know the stability of it. My understanding of this is that in order for us to find this consistent, we have to be taking action against what has been a long-established community plan. Is that correct, Mr. Garcia?
That would be not looking at, on its face, the plan says that the wetlands density credit is not applicable within the Keystone Odessa Community Plan, which has been something that has been held up for, I know, rezonings in the area for quite a few years now. So it would apply just as firmly to any land use changes, which would allow the potential of any kind of development on the site. So that is correct. It would be contrary to the founding principles of the community plan to move forward in because of again, the situation that is offered here, that it cannot develop under the 1 to 5 and go to the 1 to 2.5. So the thing is really changing the land use and increasing the density. The end result will still be one buildable unit on the site, as I had stated in my earlier presentation. However, it's the action of making the land use change from AR 1 to 5 to 1 to 2.5 that is the significant action that would be taken.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Linkus?
Tony, thank you for your presentation and your comments. I have an additional question. So, and I know this was already a little bit discussed, but I'm thinking about, now I understand that the property immediately to the south is ELAP land, so that precludes the opportunity for this applicant to, perhaps purchase that land and thus have a parcel that has sufficient acreage. But can you remind me what the property to the north is used for?
I do not know specifically what the property to the north is used for. I think Mr. Coppola does know. If you wanted to ask him that question, I don't know specifically what it's used for. I think there might be a residential unit on it, possibly, I do not know, or just be vacant land.
Mr. Coppola, I can extend that question to you in that case, if you know.
Thank you for the question. Yes. The property to the north does have a single-family home on it. The entire tract, I believe, is something along the lines of 21 acres, and there's about 3 acres of uplands on that property, and that is part of Citrus Green. So it would fall in line with the one domestic unit per 2.5 acres.
I guess, just my observation, thank you for your response on that. I guess my observation here is I'm increasingly seeing that this is a very particular case due to the public ownership of the property to the south. I feel fairly sympathetic to the applicant in some cases, but I guess I do feel that there is this question of due diligence, and I'm wondering why we're in the position to have to make a decision when we don't when we're not being offered the information about the current status of the wetlands here. And it would seem that that would create a great deal of clarity, and I'm wondering if perhaps this isn't kind of ripe for us to look at until we have current information. I guess that's just not a question there, just a comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Linkus. All right, were there any more comments or questions from the commissioner? Melissa, you look like you have something to say.
If I could, I just
line.
wanted to add something to what Mr. Garcia said in response to Commissioner Marino about the inconsistency with the Keystone Community Plan. In addition to the issue of the wetland density credit, their community plan specifically has provisions that says they want to maintain the low-density residential development of 1 unit per 5 acres and discourage plan amendments to densities higher to 1 unit per 5 acres. And that they recognize and address the situations where that's already been permitted, but they don't want that to perpetuate. And that, I think, is one of the main reasons why we found it inconsistent.
Okay. Are there any more comments or questions from the commissioners? All right, not seeing any in the room or seeing any hands being raised online right now. I will then go on ahead and close the public comment on this item at this time and open it up for motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Marino.
I move that we find proposed land use designation change for Hillsborough County Plan Amendment Hccpa 19-09 from agricultural rural 1.5 to agricultural estate 1.1/2.5, inconsistent with the future Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and forward this recommendation to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Inconsistency motion from Commissioner Marino, and that was a second by Commissioner Linkus? Or Handy? Okay, sorry. Commissioner Handy. Motion of inconsistency finding by Commissioner Marino, a second to that motion by Commissioner Handy. Is there any more discussion or comments from the commissioners on this item? Seeing none at this time, I will ask the clerk to do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Cardenas? Dix?
Yes.
Handy?
Yes.
Kress? Linkus?
Yes.
Marino?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0.
Thank you. All right. Thank everybody for the information and your time. On to our next item. It is action item number 2B, Hccpa 21-15, Future Land Use Map Amendment, Pine Key Island, and the presenter is Yeneka Mills.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do need to correct the voting record. It passed 7-0.
4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Mills, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yeneka Mills, Planning Commission staff. I am here to present Hccpa 2115, Pine Key Island. Within this round of plan amendments, Hccpa 2115 is the southernmost application located near the Apollo Beach area. This is a privately initiated plan amendment on approximately 9 acres. The site is located within the Tampa Bay area, again near Apollo Beach. The site is neither within the urban service area or the rural area. The site is also not within a community planning area. The site is located within the coastal high hazard area, and currently the site does not have a future land use designation. Here's an aerial of the site. As you can see from this aerial outlined in pink, the island has been eroding over time and has shifted somewhat. But just important to note is that the application request will only apply to the 9 acres of upland that you see here. Currently, again, there is no future land use designation for the sites. The applicant is making the request for public, quasi-public future land use designation for the site. The applicant's justification for requesting future land use of public quasi-public is so they can continue to use the site as a recreational boating designation, as well again as to assign the future land use designation to the site. This is a photo which is internal to the uplands of the site. And this is currently some of the uses that currently go on the site. This is beach volleyball, water slide they currently have on the site. Another use is beach camping that they currently use the site for. As for impacts, currently the site does not have any development potential. If the site were approved for the public quasi-public future land use classification, there would still be no residential potential or density for the site. As for intensity or non-residential uses, those would be guided by surrounding future land use classifications, which this poses a challenge, being that the nearest future land use designations are approximately 2 miles away near the Apollo Beach area. And those designations consist of residential 6, office commercial 20, heavy industrial, and natural preservation. And allowing this level of intensity on the site would be too intense, with the exception of the natural preservation future land use classification. The proposed future land use designation change to public quasi-public is inconsistent with the following goals, objectives, and policies. Within the future land use element, policy 8.1 speaks to each future land use category having a range of potentially permissible uses, and that not all those potential uses are routinely acceptable anywhere within the land use category. The request is also inconsistent with policy 6.7 of the coastal management element. Policy 6.7 states to limit development within coastal waterfront properties to uses that are water enhanced, water related, water dependent, or further the Port Authority master plan and limit public expenditure. The request is also inconsistent with objective 10 of the future land use element, which speaks to not issuing development orders for a site unless development is suitable for the physical conditions of the land, keeping in mind topographical and soil conditions, and that the development must mitigate adverse impacts that it creates. Additionally, there is a goal at the beginning of the future land use element that speaks to ensuring that the character and location of land uses optimize the economic benefit and the enjoyment and protection of natural resources while minimizing the threat to health, safety, and welfare posed by hazards, nuisances, incompatible land uses, and environmental degradation. Based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed Htcpa 2115 inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and recommend that you forward this recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, I'm Peggy Matthews. Are y'all ready for me now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, Peggy Matthews. I'm an owner, and I'm also an environmental and government relations director for the island, and I'm also a marine biologist, and there will be other major land owners of the island that will also speak later. Pine Key is a popular recreational boating destination in the Tampa Bay area for locals and also transient boaters. Next, please. Pine Key is located 2.5 miles from Apollo Beach, and it's approximately little over 9 acres, and it's also located in a very open water environment. Next slide. It's very important to realize that the county did not assign an initial land use designation, so this does not have a land use designation. The historical use has always been a public boating recreation destination. Current and proposed uses is also for public recreation. Next slide. Several land use attorneys familiar with the island indicated that public, quasi-public is the only land use designation that is adequate for the island. This is verbiage straight from the land use description of public, quasi-public for private establishments for public use, recreational services, and related uses and tourist attractions. Also, the intent of the category is community recreation, private establishment generally available to the public. This fits the island perfectly and is the only designation that fits the island. There were some questions raised at the next please. There were some questions raised about whether this was a spoil island or a natural island. This is a 1943 nav chart from the Coast Guard, which is the first chart that shows Pine Key. 1941 chart, the island was not there. It was created by shoaling, and it has been added to from dredge material, adding to the island over time. Next. There was also questions about how did this become in private ownership? This has been in private ownership since World War II. It was bought from the state to be able to moor military vessels waiting to be repaired at the River Heights Boatyard in Tampa. Next. This is an extremely high energy shoreline. It is not a sensitive habitat at all. We're about 75 yards from a shipping channel, and there's constant high energy wave action in open water. There are no nesting birds. There's no nesting sea turtles, and there is no seagrass in and around the island. Next, please. It's up top, but it didn't show on the bottom. There we go. Okay, what I wanted to show on this is the tremendous amount of erosion that the island is experiencing, especially from with the dredging, the expansion of the Big Bend Channel. This was just within a few months of each other, and you can show after the dredging was complete that it increased erosion by water displacement from the huge ships coming by, and we are still experiencing rapid erosion on the island. Next. This is what we are trying to do. Is the same thing that was done at Apollo Beach with a living shoreline. On the left is in 2012, before the living shoreline was installed, and on 2017, in a matter of 5 years, the expansion of the beach area. And we are trying to use this. We're designing and constructing a living shoreline on the island to help save the island. Next. And this is a proposed site plan indicating the type of activities that occur now and that are proposed in the future. We got the food vendors, and we got the slide, the water slide, and we have the camping area and so forth. These are all very passive recreational uses, and this is what will be on the island now and in the future. Next slide. These were slides that Yeneka showed also of current and proposed uses. As you can tell, this is a safe, family-oriented environment for the public in the surrounding area. Next slide. The island is used heavily involved in the community. MacDill Air Force Base routinely uses the island for training. They actually have training scheduled for this month. I blacked out the date. And they use it quite often. We also partner with Tampa Bay Estuary Program for such activities as coastal cleanup and other activities. As was stated, there is no physical impact to the county, and the island does generate revenue for the county. The island has its own sanitation service, has emergency services. It's powered by generators working on solar, and all the water is either collected rainwater or portable water that's brought in. Next slide. We're going through this process because the county did not. Public, quasi-public is the only land use designation that captures the historical, current, and future uses of the island. Public, quasi-public is the correct land use designation without taking away the rights of use for the owners. And there is no other land use designation but quasi-public designation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. All right, we had a few people sign up to give public comment on this one, so we will start at the top of the list, though some of these first couple may not actually be here, but I'll still go through them anyway. Who is that? I will still go through them anyway, just to be sure. All right, we're starting off with Harlan Lopez. If you're on the line, Harlan Lopez.
Harlan Lopez did not join the meeting.
All right, what about Lee Silverstein?
Lee, John, and Todd have not joined.
Okay, then we'll skip down to
Sorry,
Todd.
Todd did join. Oh, maybe a different Todd.
Todd Gonzalez?
Todd Gonzalez is here. Yes, Todd Altieri is not here.
Okay, then Todd Gonzalez.
Okay, well, thanks. First off, I state my name, Todd Gonzalez. I reside at 919 Symphony Isles Boulevard in Apollo Beach, so I'm very close to this island. And first, I want to thank the time for the board and chairman to allow for public comment. I did read through the entire 72-page land use amendment, and in my opinion, I think public, quasi-public is the right designation. I've been going to this island since before the current owners owned it, and I will tell you that the change to the island has all been positive since their ownership. I think in the past, I may remember going there and feeling a little insecure. I have two young children, 8 and 6, two daughters, and I didn't feel comfortable in some instances taking them there because there just wasn't any oversight. It was, for lack of a better term, almost lawless. Since the owners took it over, there's many recreational activities that were covered. The kids just love the water slide. Daddy, can we go on the water slide today? Is it up? And I go there, and we love it, right? It's all very family fun. You pull your boat up, you just, do family fun activities, and it's just, it would be a detriment, I think, to our community to lose that. And as mentioned, it's a boost to local economy. I mean, in addition to generating revenue for the county, it's also helping with some of our, the people that run it. It's also helping some of the charter captains that take charters out there. I think it's just a good thing for the county and the residents within the county. I mean, it's just, it's a great place. It's a great boating destination. And the last thing I would like to end with is, quite frankly, there's not much else you can do there. I know there's some concern about the inconsistency and potentially what other uses could come of it. But at the end of the day, it's low-lying, it's shifting. I know there's some plans to help mitigate that. But at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with it, and I just don't ever see that changing, and I hope that you take the consideration and the public comment to allow this to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up on our list, we have Jonathan Mchenry. Jonathan Mchenry on the line.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Please, go ahead.
I'm actually one of the large stake owners in the island, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Peggy Matthews said and our first speaker said as well. This island at first, it has been in private hands since the 1940s, so it's always been privately owned. Basically, a lot of people had come out there and turned this into let's just say a party destination, and had not respected, and they were trespassing at the time. I don't know why the owners didn't do anything about it, but you know, we got the moniker, the nickname Beer Can Island, and the reason being was because it was absolutely and completely littered with beer cans. And what we're trying to do, and what we did at the very beginning, is to clean up all those beer cans and to clean up everything. And as the gentleman previous to me talking said, you know, he didn't feel safe out there with his kids and everything. The sheriff's department was out there every weekend, and people were getting arrested, and it was just not a place that the county or Tampa Bay at all could be proud of. And what we've done since we've gone out there is to try and turn it into the jewel of Tampa Bay. We're trying to turn this into a boating destination that the locals and Tampa Bay at large, and even tourists from, you know, around the world for that matter, can be proud of. And as Peggy had noted, the public quasi-public is literally the only one, and we've consulted several land use attorneys on this, and literally that is the only one that even remotely meets this, what we're trying to go for here. So our intentions are completely golden. We want to keep this a boating destination for the community, and we also want to keep it a primitive boating destination for the community. We also want to keep it clean, so the bay stays clean. We want to use renewable energy and be a beacon for those, you know, using renewable energy in the community at large and whatnot. So basically, in summation, we're trying to make this exactly what we already have made it, and we are not given an initial land use designation, and we're going for this because this is the closest to what is available from you all. So, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up we have Cole Weaver. Is Cole Weaver on the line?
Cole, you're muted.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm also a stake owner in the island, and I live here in Apollo Beach on the boulevard. And wanted to just kind of reiterate more or less what John was talking about, that, you know, the island has always been used for a boating destination, and with the current zoning that we're going after, will just allow what's always been done there to continue going on there. We're not trying to do anything crazy out there by, you know, getting, you know, a hotel out there, some crazy destination. The closest zoning that is applicable for us is public, quasi-public. And that's what we're going after. We're not trying to make big changes out there. We're not trying to build a hotel or a house or any of that kind of stuff out there. We want the island to be a boating destination for everybody to come and enjoy. And we've been told by the county that we need to seek zoning, which is why we're here today. We have tried to make the place a very safe, friendly, enjoyable environment since we've taken over the property, cleaned up a bunch of the trash. We have security out there, and we're applicable with every state organization and every law applicable to us. And like I just wanted to say that, you know, we're just trying to continue what's always been done out there, going forward with this new public, quasi-public destination. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, next up we have Peggy Matthews.
She was the applicant representative.
Does she? Okay.
Yeah, I've already spoke. Y'all probably don't need to hear from me.
Okay. All right, next up we have Kevin Pelk, or Pels.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
So I'd like to start off, I'm in marine construction in the community. I'm also a part owner of the island. Been with it basically since the project's been started. I'd like to say that it's one of those things for the boating community that's very important. Just for the fact that I actually teach people to boat on the island quite a bit. A lot of my customers are new boaters. We've all been most of my customers are just getting into boating, and I always tell them, come meet me at the island. I teach them how to anchor, all the little things. If they get into trouble, I always have somebody available to go pick them up, tow them. A lot of the people in the community are getting very new to boating. This is one of the only safe havens that I can really think of to send people to if they do get into trouble. And I always have people available. It's just, I can't stress enough, without Beer Can Island and how it's been run, it has changed. I was here before any of us purchased the island. It was a mess. There was just garbage everywhere. There was no organization, no restrooms, no facilities. Everything's been changed with that. It has a whole new, outlook on it. I bring my kids there. I have twin boys that are 4, 6-year-old, boy too, and we honestly just go up the slide all day long, enjoy it. It's a very family-oriented feel for the community, and I mean, if we lost it, I don't know what else we have. I mean, the preserve is very dangerous. Even I don't even like going there just for the fact that there's such a strong current there. There's really not a lot of places in the water in Tampa Bay that I feel safe having kids around besides Beer Can. So anything was getting lost with it. It would be very detriment to our community of Apollo Beach homeowner. I'm also, business owner, run marine construction. So it's, we're just trying to get by and create something for the community. It's really not about, income or anything like that. It's really about safety of the bay and really enjoying the water. And that's really the best way to say it, I guess. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you for your comments, sir. Next up, we have Russell Loomis. I'm not sure if this person is signed in.
Chair, this is Dan Putnam with HTV. I have one caller on that hasn't been identified yet. With your permission, can I identify him real quick to make sure he's not part of this agenda item?
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, call-in user with the last 2 digits 14. Can you please identify yourself? Call-in user with the last 2 digits 14. Can you hear me? You are unmuted now. I'm not getting any response from him, Chair.
All righty.
And Russell and Patrick and Cynthia Rayford have not signed into the meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
That wraps up our public comment from the public. So I will now turn it over to the commissioners for rebuttal. Actually, I'll send it back to the applicant for a rebuttal to the public comment. 3-minute rebuttal. You're breaking up.
Yeah. This is Peggy Matthews. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I am glad we have the support from the comments, and there are a lot more support. It's just difficult, especially the virtual type of setting. If it was in person, the room would be filled. And I would like to say once again that public quasi-public is the only land use designation that's available for the island. Okay, there is no other. Any other avenue would be a taking of the private owner's rights to use that island. And as you can tell, it's only going to be for the good of the community. And I will like to say I had not seen the inconsistency policy that Yeneka had went through. And I would like to review that, and I will get with her on that because I don't feel some of them are appropriate as far as being inconsistent with the uses of the island. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I will open it up to the planning commissioners for comments and questions on this item. Discussion? Not seeing any lights in the room. Commissioner Powell. Oop. Ladies first, you want me? Yeah, I'll give it to Commissioner Linkus first.
This is a new thing for me where I've not seen anything where, without there being any zoning designation. So I'm curious, and I'm not quite sure who to ask, who this question is appropriate for, and maybe Ms. Ornita, you can help me. But what are the sort of legal implications of not allowing there to be any kind of zoning here?
Well, it is unique. This is one of only a few properties that we know of that have this situation. There are a couple of other islands in the just to the north that also similarly do not have a land use category. Certainly because it's in private ownership, they are entitled to a land use category. So we're not against finding them the right land use category. We just simply do not feel that the public, quasi-public is quite the right fit. Quite honestly, I wish the county's plan had a category like the recreation and open space that the city of Tampa has, because that would really encapsulate what they want to do. The public, quasi-public is a bit more broad and allows for a lot of other uses. And the natural preservation, as the applicant has alluded to, doesn't quite fit their interests either. But yes, I do feel that they do need a land use category to be able to enable them to have zoning, to then enable them to do whatever use it is that they want to do.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Melissa. I know that we haven't adopted the property use element yet, but given that this has already been, approved by the House bill, would we not have to take that into consideration into this, into their right into having, a land use category and just looking at, I think it was PR policy 1.2. I don't know if that's from the state, what it is in the state statute, but what it would be proposed for here. And it reads that, which one was it? Hillsborough County will consider in its decision-making the right of a property owner to use, maintain, develop, and improve his or her property for personal use or for the use of any other person. So.
I think technically we are evaluating the amendment based on the adopted comprehensive plan that is adopted today. That is not in the adopted comprehensive plan today. But that being said, I do think that, again, I think if you read our staff report, Ms. Mills says in there that we're not against them having a land use category. We just don't think that the public, quasi-public is the right fit. We would recommend, if we were limited to the ones that are in the plan today, natural preservation. I think you heard from the applicant, they have concerns about that. We also suggested in the staff report the contemplation of creating a land use category that fits this better. But our concern is that it would be more open-ended and broad, as I said before.
All right, I had a quick question. What are the limitations of the natural that run afoul of what they're trying to do precisely?
Give me 1 second. The natural preservation has a, oh, there it was. The typical uses are open space or passive natural parks. I think there may be some question between passive and active. Right. It also does require, if the land is privately owned, that the owner and all other persons having an interest in such lands shall execute an easement, declaration of restrictions, or other similar instrument restricting the uses of such land to those that are consistent to the land use category. So, and that instrument has to be recorded in the public records of Hillsborough County. So it does have these additional strings. Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Marino.
Thank you. And thank you, Melissa, for that clarification, because the example I kept thinking of was Picnic Island, which, while it is attached, it's not really an island, but a lot of it was private, port land. It's still very much industrial, but it's recreational, and I don't know if it doesn't quite have the intensity at some places of what this may propose, but I guess in a hypothetical, if this were to be in the city limits, and it's pretty close to where the city limits are, it would seem as if it could go under like you said, a city of Tampa classification rather than a county classification. So I don't know. I personally I'm having a hard time deeming it to be consistent because of like what you said is that I don't know what else it could be used for. I mean, recreation makes the most sense, but if it's not, there isn't that clarification there. I have some concerns about some of the uses that were identified on the map, but you know, there are other properties in the water there that are privately owned. I think Mosaic owns 2 of them. This isn't going to be the first time something like this comes up, so there's going to have to be some sort of change where either the city of Tampa takes responsibility for it and it's added into city limits, or there is a change to Hillsborough County land use so that you could have some sort of development, even if it is for recreational, on at least those 3 that are identified when you look at the property appraiser map.
Thank you. Commissioner Dix.
In the staff analysis, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the staff analysis, it was suggested that your natural preservation, as you mentioned, Melissa, or to create a new future land use classification. What is the procedure to create a new future land use classification, and how onerous of a process is that?
Well, it depends on whether or not if the applicant wants to do it, then they file a privately initiated text amendment. For the county, that is the most expensive of the plan amendments, but it takes about the same amount of time in terms of about 6 months of process. If it was directed by the Board of County Commissioners that occur and staff undertook it, you know, we would again have to take it through the public hearing process, which would take a couple of months. But so yeah, it probably takes 4 to 6 months either way.
Is it less onerous for some sort of a recommendation to come from the Planning Commission to the County Commission that they direct staff to develop a new land use classification, which could be written specifically to cover the uses that this owner would like to see, and let staff become creative as for other islands that might be appropriate?
I think that's certainly less onerous on the applicant in terms of costs. In terms of time, it probably is not altogether that much different, except that staff can file an amendment at any time, whereas an applicant has to wait until a specific cycle. So certainly that, if you all wanted to make that recommendation, that could accompany your finding either way, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. And in the interim, in the perfect world, while a new land use classification was being developed with staff, I presume that there's nothing that would prevent them from continuing to operate the property as they're doing right now. Is that correct?
I believe that the code enforcement issue has been put in abeyance while they deal with this land use issue. So,
yeah, I read about that, but it didn't say what that was. It said something about there was a code enforcement issue.
Well, the code enforcement issue arose because they didn't have the proper zoning, which they couldn't have until they got a land use category. So they really are in a catch-22 here.
I got you.
But I do understand that that's been stayed until this is resolved.
Okay. So perhaps that might be the best approach, whether we find it consistent or inconsistent, regardless, to ask or to suggest that the county commission direct the planning commission to develop a new land use classification specifically for submerged lands and non-submerged lands within Tampa Bay.
It sounds good to me. I'm open for motions when the time comes. So, thank you, Commissioner Dix. Commissioner Bernstein.
Yeah, maybe just one last observation from here on that. Having heard our executive director, if I understand it right, the city of Tampa seems to have fashioned a classification that might lend itself more to what the applicant's seeking. And if that is the case, it just seems from a policy perspective, we should strive for a little more consistency between the city and county when they both share the same shoreline. So I just wonder if that's something else that should be added in the equation here. The city may already have a roadmap that could guide us in some respects, and so think that's another consideration.
Good point. Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. Are there any more? Let me check on the WebEx. See if anybody's got their hands up. Not seeing any. Commissioner Handy, yes, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm understanding because of the coastal high hazard area issues, the conundrum of staff, and first of all, the fact that the proposed land use doesn't quite fit because other things could happen in the future other than what is being proposed under that land use. But I think what gets my attention also is the use of septic tanks is to be prohibited in coastal high hazard areas. I'm assuming that that's exactly what will have to be installed on the island. So I'm not sure if there's another land use category that would be able to overcome that. But I guess I'm sympathizing with staff because there are a lot of reasons here where I can see that it was they found the finding of inconsistency.
Good points, Commissioner Handy. Very good comments. Is there any more thoughts or discussion, comments from the commissioners on this item? I'm not seeing any lights in the room or any hands being raised on the WebEx. So I will go on ahead and close public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we find Hccpa 21-15 inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan and forward our recommendation on to the Board of County Commissioners.
All right.
And before I second that, Mr. Chairman, with the point of order, would you be open to a friendly amendment that would suggest in that recommendation that we also are encouraging the Board of County Commissioners to direct the Planning Commission to develop a new future land use designation that would be suitable for the uses of this property, as well as similar properties located within the area? Would you be open to that?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Dix. I would more than welcome it. I think that's certainly an improvement on the motion.
Perfect.
All right, so we have an amended inconsistency motion with the addition of a letter to direct the PC to come up with a new category to better deal with situations like this. Hopefully Melissa took notes on all that. Okay, yeah, she's nodding. So, all right. And that is a second to that motion from you, Commissioner Dix? Okay. So you have an inconsistency motion by Commissioner Bernstein with a letter request, and that is seconded by Commissioner Dix. Is there any more discussion from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any lights in the room or hands online, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Linkus?
Yes.
Marino?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. All right, on to our next item of business. It is 2C, AICPA 21-17, Future Land Use Map Amendment at Orsley Drive and Kingsway Road, and the presenter is Andrea Papandrew.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Presenting CPA 21-17, Orsley Drive and North Kingsway Road. The subject site is located in the northeastern portion of Hillsborough County, just south of the urban service area boundary. This is a privately initiated map amendment. The subject site is shown in pink on the aerial and is 5.21 acres. It is just south of the urban service area, which is shown in the blue line on the aerial. The site is located in the Sacramento Community Plan. It is east of North Kingsway Road, which is a collector, north of Orsley Drive, a local Kingsway, and south of State 4, an arterial roadway. The existing vacant residential. There is an existing single-family residential parcel located in the southwestern portion of the site, and this parcel is not included within this comprehensive plan amendment. Existing land uses surrounding the site include single-family residential and vacant residential on the north, south, east, and western portions. In addition, on the west across North Kingsway Road is some Department of Transportation right-of-way, Evans Field and Higginbotham Park, the Burnett Middle School, and then further south is this vacant commercial property located at the intersection of Highway 92. The adopted future land use category is residential 4. Residential 4 surrounding the state on the east, west, and south. Further southwest is the public, quasi-public future land use category. To the north is the agricultural estate 1 per 2.5, residential 1, and residential 2 future land use categories. The proposal before you today is to change the residential 9 future land use category. So this is the front of the subject property. It is vacant residential land. And as you can see, the single family parcel located to the west of the site is not included within this comp plan amendment. This is the back of the subject property. It faces Interstate 4, and there is no exit ramp from Interstate 4 to North Kingsway Road. This is the edge of the property facing west towards North Kingsway Road. Immediately across the street are single-family residential properties and vacant residential properties. Properties immediately to the south of the site across Orsley Road are single-family residential. And then properties to the east, looking towards Orsley Road, are single-family residential and 1 vacant residential lot. The adopted residential 4 future land use category allows for up to 20 dwelling units on site and a maximum intensity of a 0.25 FAR or 175,000 square feet. The potential residential 9 future land use category would allow for an increase in density up to 46 dwelling units and an increase in intensity up to 0.50 FAR. The square footage would remain the same at 175,000. Any non-residential development over 0.35 FAR must be for office or residential support uses and not retail. And if approved, the plan amendment change allows consideration of urban scale neighborhood commercial uses. Currently, residential 4 allows for suburban scale neighborhood commercial uses. At the time Planning Commission staff reports were due, the Community Infrastructure Planning Department stated that not enough information was submitted by the applicant to analyze the impacts on the surrounding roadway network. So Planning Commission staff is finding this plan amendment to be inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element. The adopted future land use categories for this area are suitable for low residential development with a suburban or semi-rural development character. The proposed future land use of residential 9 designates areas that are suitable for medium to higher density residential development and introduces an urban development character. The area is not transitioning to a medium or higher density development pattern. There is no trend or evidence of any development with a higher density than residential 4 in the immediate surrounding area. Policy 1.4 and Objective 12-1 requires that new development should be designed to be compatible with their surrounding community and the character of neighborhoods, while a change to residential 9 future land use category would promote growth in the urban service area. It would not facilitate a gradual transition of land use categories and densities within the area. Objective 16 and its policies focus on protecting existing neighborhoods and communities by restricting incompatible land uses. The surrounding area consists mostly of single-family residential, vacant residential, and mobile home lots with an average lot size of 0.67 acres. As I stated earlier, there is a vacant commercial lot south of the site, but it's located at an intersection node. The average number of dwelling units within a 1/4 mile per acre is 4.65 units. Policy 16.8 requires the overall density and lot sizes of new residential projects reflects the character of the surrounding area. A land use change going from 4 dwelling units an acre to 9 dwelling units an acre would result in lot sizes and densities that are incompatible with the immediately surrounding residential uses. The development potential associated with the residential 9 future land use category is not compatible with the surrounding area and is inconsistent with the future land use element. The site is also within the Sefner Mango Community Plan. Per the Community Plan, Goal 2 seeks to support infill development and redevelopment within the urban service area while providing for compatibility with existing uses. The development potential for the site would allow for infill development that would not provide a compatible density and intensity with existing surrounding residential uses. So the subject site does not meet the intent of the Sefner Mango Community Plan. Based on this, Planning Commission staff found Hccpa 21-17 inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My name is Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is ACCPA 21-17. Excuse me, next slide, please. We're located in the Sefner Mango area. Next slide, please. And a little closer look of the site on Orsley Road and abutting up to Interstate 4. And as the planners indicated, that inner square area is not included with the property. Next slide, please. As indicating to you the specific site for consideration. Next slide, please. So the issue, very simply, is request going from currently R4 to proposed R9. Next slide, please. Thank you. I would submit to you that the differences between the current and the proposed are not really that great. The only difference between residential is 26 dwelling units. Square footage, as the planner indicated, stays the same. There's a difference between suburban scale commercial, neighbor commercial, versus urban scale neighbor commercial, but those will also be controlled by locational criteria. Next slide, please. And as I indicated, non-residential uses shall meet locational criteria. Next slide, please. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, board members, if there's one land element that drives this site, it is that I-4, Interstate 4, directly abuts this site. That is a major consideration, which, as you heard, the staff barely refers to, and in fact, in the staff report is only literally mentioned one time in just a couple words. You cannot look at the site or consider land uses on the site without taking into account the busiest, heaviest, most involved roadway, if not activity, in this entire county. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial view of it. The site is right on the corner. Next slide, please. And this is another orientation. That's a light pole in the middle, but you'll see the site again abuts right up on I-4. Next slide, please. And I-4 is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of constant loud noise, odor, and lights. Next slide, please. In 2020, passing this site were 129,000 vehicles, trucks per day. That's from FDOT. Next slide, please. Kingsway itself averages 3,900 vehicles a day. It's a fairly busy roadway on the other abutting road. Next slide, please. Now, one basic concept in all planning is a transitional from more intensive uses to less intensive uses. And that's certainly what this application would call for. It would allow a higher density, but would allow tremendous buffering to the existing residential uses that are in the area already. Next slide, please. So Interstate 4 is completely left out. There's no consideration whatsoever by the staff on the impacts of this property, the development of this property, how Interstate 4 is a tremendous impact and burden on this property. Next slide, please. Planning Commission. Under the report, existing land use surrounding development pattern, there's no mention, no discussion, no consideration of Interstate 4. Next slide, please. Under analysis and impact, again, that entire analysis and impact, I-4 is completely left out, no consideration. Next slide, please. Policy 16.2 does talk about the gradual transitions of intensities. And I believe that what we're proposing does provide for that transition of intensity between different land uses, provided as for new development is proposed and approved to the use of professional site planning, buffering, and screening techniques, and control of specific land uses. Policy 16.3 is development redevelopment shall be integrated with adjacent land uses through creation of like uses, creation of complementary uses, or mitigation of adverse impacts. Next slide, please. Policy 16.2, emphasis requires gradual transition of intensities between different land uses through control of specific land uses. Next slide, please. The urban service area is established to designate on the future land use map the location for urban level development of the county. The boundary serves as a means to provide efficient use of land and public and private investment and to contain urban sprawl. This is an infill site. We are inside the urban service area. Next slide, please. Policy 16.10 looks at a lot of different characters to determine compatibility. You can't consider compatibility with the site unless you consider what's the major driving force, which is Interstate 4, 192 or 212,000 vehicles per day, 24/7, in terms of height, scale, mass, bulk, traffic, circulation, lighting, noise, and odor. Next slide, please. And under the housing element of the comp plan, goal 2 is to provide and assist in the provision of ample housing supply with a broad range of types and price levels to meet current and projected housing needs so that all of Hillsborough County has an opportunity to purchase or rent standard housing. Next slide, please. And in terms of the Sefter-Mango Community Plan, it does support infill development and redevelopment within the urban service area and provide signage to indicate arrival into the Sefter-Mango area, which this property owner would do. Next slide, please. So in summary for the PowerPoint, I have 2 more items for you. It's not a great difference between what is the current and proposed in terms of square footage, size, and use, and that's primarily driven by the size of the property. Most significant land factor has not been considered in the analysis at all. It does meet many comp plan policies. We appreciate your consideration. Mr. Chairman, the staff does have 2 very, very short videos I'd like to show you, please. If we could go ahead with those. That's one. There's one other short one. Thank you. Thank you. With that, Mr. Chairman, we appreciate your consideration and happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now let's see what we got for public comment on this one. I only have one person signed up for this one. So Terry Float, please.
That would be me.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, or evening, I should say, Commissioners. My name is Terry Float. I am resident in very close to this application and also the president of Sefter Community Alliance. So I have input from a lot of other people, and the reason why you don't hear them on the phone tonight is likely because notification was very short on this one. So now Mr. Pressman did meet the standards, but notification in general is short, and the signs are not posted in a site of people passing by, only the residents that live on that little stretch of roadway there. So I'm here to object to this plan amendment. And the very basic is it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. It's inconsistent in the fact that it's very close to the urban service boundary line and moving growth and other inconsistent applications to come and follow this very one. We're going to have a mess on our hands. And every single day right now, there's construction going on along I-4 at various locations, and especially right on the urban service boundary and actually into the rural service area that are building homes. So don't be fooled by that. It's not it's not relevant at all at this point. What's relevant, commissioners, is the fact that we've worked hard through the comprehensive planning phase and also, in our community planning to maintain a choice of lifestyles. The comprehensive plan, as an excerpt, takes into consideration to be able to offer people options and choices for the type of community they want to live in. This is actually going backwards. We're going backwards. Going from Res 4 to Res 9. There's other options in between, but they wouldn't apply for this either. So I'm asking you, commissioners, to not be fooled by some of the video and all of that. They're building homes as we speak along I-4. There's buffering things they can put in, but to be honest with you, most of them aren't, and those homes are selling. So be aware of that fact. And I hope I'm not getting ready to get dropped. I just sort of beat.
Yeah, your time's up.
Am
If you
I
could
over?
go ahead and wrap up your comments really quick.
Yeah, I've been sitting a long time. So I want you to please listen to your staff. If you don't believe what your residents in the community is, you need to listen to your staff. This is inconsistent in every way and will create major problems and only create lack of lifestyle choices, and suddenly we're going to see more comp plan amendments coming through to try to eat up some of these small parcels. Frankly, it's just as bad as spot zoning. Spot zoning, not a good thing. Doing spot comp plan amendments is not a good thing either. So I hope you will take into consideration what the community feels, not just me, and your staff. So I'd ask that you support this finding of inconsistency and not allow this to go through.
Thank you, Ms. Flott. Thank you for your comments. All right. We do not have anybody else signed up. I just want to make sure HTV doesn't want to call out any numbers or anything here because I don't have anyone else on the list for public comments.
We do not have anybody else signed up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I will turn it over to the applicant at this point in time then for a 3-minute rebuttal to the comments that were provided.
Well, I appreciate the comments from Ms. Flott. She's a friend, but she is the only person that we have heard from. Of course, notices went out to the immediate area, signs have been up, and there is no other opponents speaking or other people raising concerns from the immediate area. The video speaks for itself. I think I could just show the video and you would see the tremendous intensity that this site has to contend with. And one of the ways to best contend with it is to provide mitigation and provide buffering, which would be a tremendous buffering from the intensive use. As I showed you on the PowerPoint, the difference between what's proposed and what's existing is not that different. And the housing portion of the comp plan certainly does call for different levels and different types of housing for folks to use within the urban service area. With that, I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I open it up to discussion from the commissioners, I did just want to double check with Ms. Zornita that this thing was properly noticed and signage was put up appropriately, because there was a claim that there was some missed signage and some missed noticing or short noticing. So I just wanted to ask the question.
I believe by our records that,
Okay.
but I can double check that while you all discuss.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I will now then open it up to the commissioners for comments and discussions on this item. And I see Commissioner Handy. Yes.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad Ms. Flott spoke up, because I was happy to hear from a representative of the community planning group, because first of all, I think that 46 residential units on a little over 5 acres does look a little high for this community that I'm looking at, again, on my buddy Google Earth. But I would say that I would side with the community plan and with the staff's findings. And the Mr. Pressman kept talking about I-4, and I understand certainly what he's saying. However, I'm quite sure I-4 was there when the community put their plan together. So I'm not, I guess I might be missing the relevance there. And I would go back to the inconsistency with the community plan and the staff's findings in general, and particularly what Ms. Flott had to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. Is there any more discussion or comments? Commissioner Powell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question for staff. Is there any Res 9 like in the area, within say like half a mile or a mile? Because I wasn't able to find any. I was just curious if maybe I happened to overlook that.
Yes, so there is no residential 9 in the immediate area. There is some southwest of the site, approximately about 1.8 miles, but not in the immediate surrounding area.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Is there any more discussion from the commissioners or questions? I am not seeing any. Let me double check Commissioner Linkus, yes, please, go ahead.
I just want to thank Andrea for a very clear staff report that I think really situated what's going on at this site very clearly. So thank you for the detailed report.
All right. Are there any more comments or questions? Not seeing any hands raised on the WebEx or any more lights going on in the room. I will go ahead and close public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion that we find Hccpa 21-17 inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward this recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
All right, we got an inconsistency motion by Commissioner Powell, a second to that motion by Commissioner Marino. Is there any more discussion on this item from the commissioners? Comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, seeing no more, I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Linkus?
Yes.
Marino?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for the information, and thanks staff for the presentations. On to our next item. It's action item 2D, Htcpa 2118, and it is a future land use map amendment also. This one is at Thonotosassa Road and North Kings Highway Road, and the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. I'm going to be presenting on Hccpa 21-18, Thonotosassa Road and North Kingsway Road. Here's a location map of the plan amendments this cycle. 21-18 is in northeast Hillsborough County in the Thonotosassa area on the south side of Thonotosassa Lake. Currently, the property is being used as an agricultural tree farm. It's surrounded by other agricultural uses and single-family homes. This map amendment is privately initiated. The parcel sits on approximately 24.21 acres, located in the rural service area and within the limits of the Thonotosassa community plan. The subject site has two future land use categories. Currently, the northern portion is residential 1, and the southern portion is agricultural rural 1 to 5. Surrounding the property, the future land use categories are agricultural rural 1 to 5 to the south and east, residential 1 to the west, residential 2 further south, and residential 6 further northwest. The applicant is proposing to change the agricultural rural future land use designation on the southern portion of the property to residential 1, so that the entire parcel has a future land use category of residential 1. Here's some photos of the site. This is the frontage on Thonotosassa Road. As you can see, the property is currently in a natural vegetated state. This is the view across the street looking east on down Thonotosassa Road. There are single family homes across the street, again in a very rural area. This is looking north across the street on the Thonotosassa Road towards the lake. This is looking west down Thonotosassa Road. There's also single family homes further down that way. And this is just to give some context of the general area. This is looking north on North Kingsway Road as if you were driving towards the property. This is driving towards Thonotosassa Road. Since there's already a residential 1 future land use designation on part of this property, there will be no changes in potential uses on the site. The major potential impact by changing the agricultural rural portion to Res 1 will be that the maximum density permitted will go from 16 dwelling units to 24 dwelling units. The maximum intensity stays the same at 0.25 FAR, but changes from 40,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. Planning Commission staff is finding this application consistent with the comprehensive plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County based on the objectives and their associated policies and the future land use element. Objective 4 in the rural service area development. The objectives regarding neighborhood protection and compatibility and their associated policies. Objective 18 and associated policies relating to community planning, Goal 12 and its associated objectives in community design component. And also this application is located within the limits of the Thonotosassa community plan, in which staff found that the application is consistent with Goals 3 and 4 of that plan, which pertain to rural character, open space, and agriculture, and diversity of people, housing, and uses. And based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff is finding that Hccpa 21-18 is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you. Does the applicant have any presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. William Malloy with Malloy and James, 325 South Boulevard. There is nothing substantive or helpful I can add to what Ms. Massey had to say. We are in a very pleasant situation of agreeing entirely with staff's report. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, on this one, we're going over to public comment now. Let's see who we got signed up. Keith, first up, Keith Malcutt.
No comment at this time. I'm with the applicant, so I'll just be available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. And next up, we have a William Malloy, and I think I know who that is.
That's me.
All right. All right. Is there anyone else that you have HTV or any weird numbers or anything on the line?
There is not.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will close our public comment on that item. I guess I should offer the applicant a chance to rebut. Although there wasn't anything said, I'll still put it out there.
No, thank you. We're fine.
Okay, then now I will open it up to the commissioners for comments and questions on this item. Seeing no lights in the room and seeing no hands being raised on the WebEx, I will go ahead and close public comment and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I propose that we make a motion that we find Hccpa 2118 consistent and forward this recommendation over to the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
All right, I got a consistency motion by Commissioner Powell. That was seconded by Commissioner Marino. Is there any more comment or discussion from the commissioners on this item? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Linkus?
Yes.
Marino?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you to the staff and the applicant. All right, onto our next one is 2E, Hccpa 21-19, another future land use map amendment. This one is located at State Road 60 and Mulrennan Road, and the presenter is Krista Kelly.
Krista, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm trying to get the video up. Let's see here.
It's the share button at the bottom of the WebEx session.
Yep. Is there any way you can pull it up?
Krista, we do not have the presentation. It was not sent to us. There you go. We can see it now.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just having difficulty making it go forward.
Krista, I think Lionel's sharing it, so you just need to tell him when to advance the slides.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Hccpa 2119. This site is located on State Road 60 and Mulrennan Road. This is a privately initiated plan amendment. The site is located within the urban service area. This line shows you where it's located within the Brandon and Valrico area. It's 13.41 acres, approximately, consisting of 4 parcels. It's southwest of the intersection of State Road 60 and Mulrennan Road. Next slide. This is an aerial of the site, kind of giving you context. To the north of the site, there are auto-related businesses lining the north side of State Road 60, a strip mall, and some townhomes over here. To the west of the site, adjacent to it, there's an auto salvage yard and the railroad tracks. Then you will see apartments that have been developed. It's the Valrico station, and then also townhomes. To the east of the site, you'll see the Farm Bureau building. It's a little cutout here, and Circle K, and then a very large mobile home park. To the south of the site is the railroad track again. And what I'd like to point out is there is also concurrently proposed a multifamily development extension of Valrico Station to the south of the site. And also the intensity diminishes and it becomes suburban and rural scale single family. Next slide. Okay, this is the proposed or the adopted future land use map, and you see the site outlined. Currently, it's partially residential 4 and residential 9. Residential 9 lining the State Road 60, which is a commercial corridor. And the mobile home park is residential 6. This is heavy industrial, which recognizes the salvage yard, and then residential 20 recognizing the Valrico Station, the apartment complex. Next slide. I wanted to show you the also concurrent plan amendment, CPA 2101, which was found consistent by the Planning Commission on July 12th, south of the site, just over the railroad tracks. It's an extension of the apartment complex, and it will be going to the Board of County Commissioners at the December 9th public hearing. Next slide, please. So this shows the proposed change. The applicant's requesting residential 20. And again, you can see the surrounding area. This is residential 20. This is office commercial 20, residential 6, residential 9. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like going east down 60 towards the amendment site. This is the auto salvage yard as you approach the amendment site. Next slide, please. And then this is looking back towards the amendment site. Again, the arrows pointing the property in general. It's very heavily wooded. There is the Farm Bureau building on the corner. This is the intersection of 60 and Mulrennan Road. Next slide, please. And this is looking down Mulrennan Road. As you can see, it's, again, it's a local road, it's a collector. And as you extend away from State Road 60, it becomes less intense and rural in character. Next slide, please. The impact of this change, the site is 13.41 acres in total. it would increase the number of units by 191 units, and it would cap the amount of non-residential uses by 175,000 square feet. Next slide, please. This was distributed for agency comment. We did not receive many comments or objections. However, we did receive an objection from Community and Infrastructure Planning because there was no analysis provided for the proposed amendment to Res 20 on the transportation system. And therefore, they felt that they were obligated to object to that. Next slide. We reviewed it for consistency with the comprehensive plan, and it was consistent with a number of the sections of the future land use element, the urban service area and compatibility, relationship to the concept plan and the future land use map, the provision of public facilities and transportation. Next slide, please. Neighborhood and community development and community design component. These portions of the comp plan are outlined in your staff report in more detail. Next slide, please. Based on this information and based on these findings, the Planning Commission staff recommended that Hccpa 2119 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policy of the future land use of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and to forward that recommendation to the Planning Commission. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Was there any presentation from the applicant on this one?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioner. My name is J.D. Al-Sabah. I am with Sycamore Engineering, 8370 West Hillsborough Avenue, Suite 205, Tampa, Florida 33615. So this is here. I'm going to share with you my screen. So the subject development is the applicant on this request is Able Capital, and the request is for land use amendment approval from Res 9 and Res 4, which is existing right now, to Res 20. Of course, we surrounded with a major road. Its location of the property located in the southwest quadrant of State Road 60 and Mulrennan Road in Valrico, Hillsborough County. State Road 60 is major arterial and have a future development from 4-lane right now to 6-lane in the next 20-25 years, according to recent knowledge on that. Mulrennan Road is collector and substandard road, which is the east side of the property. The property is 13.41 acre. It is 4 folio number combined. The existing condition right now, they have 2 single-family homes. And the best of my ability, those homes, according to the owner, partially inhabitable there. So the property, as you see, to the east of us, we have a 600 plus mobile home on the east side shown. So at the same time, north of it is existing mobile gas station recently renovated. In the northeast corner across the street, there's existing 180 plus townhome constructed in the last 5-6 years, plus commercial in the front, partially developed. In the south side of the property, there's existing railroad, which is very the boundary of the property. Across from it, 330 unit apartment, which is, as Ms. Kelly indicated, that will be land use amendment. It's going on right now to increase it. West of that 200 unit townhome or so, And of course, west of our site is auto salvage a place also existed. So this is the adapted, the proposed map, which I2C does not, we show us in the brown color. We have another brown color, which Res 20 west of us existing, and will be the adapted, coming up, the adapted one, which is connected between those, a spot. We have on the northeast corner, OC20, as you see, which is residential and commercial. As you see, the staff found out the proposed request is consistent with the future of Hillsborough comprehensive plan. So we ask you respectfully for your approval on that. And ready to answer any question.
All right, thank you, sir. On this item signed up for public comment, you were the only one. I have JD Alsabah.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, no comments from you then?
I think so.
Okay, all right, just checking. Thank you, sir. And no weird numbers there, HTV, hidden in the list there anywhere? Just double checking?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. That is all we have signed up for public comment on this one, so I will now turn it over to, oh, wait, let me double check with the applicant to make sure there was no rebuttal. Just checking with you again, JD. Good? All right.
Yep, no problem.
All right, thank you, sir. We will turn it over to the commissioners then for comments or questions on this item. Yes, Commissioner Handy.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the objection by the Infrastructure Department, Community and Infrastructure Department. There was no transportation, no analysis of impact on transportation. I'm already sort of questioning the additional 191 units on 13 acres, and I know this is a densely developed area, but other than the loss of what little green space is left in that area, it would seem that traffic would be a really big deal by that enormous increase in density. So can we find out why there was no analysis of the impact to transportation?
Can I answer it?
Sure, yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So if I share with you, this is what's happened. We, as part of the requirement when we submit, there is no required transportation analysis. They contact us, the staff, and getting a full, complete analysis will really, at the time, we don't have the time for that. And we submitted it, we ready to submit it with the PD, which is the PD already submitted it on this application. However, when we went many and did many analysis, I can show you what we did. It was really too late to submit it to the staff. So this is what we have here. The existing condition here with our Res 9 and Res 4 is created 523 unit. A trip generated per day. The proposed condition is 1742, which means additional 1290 daily. The existing condition on this here road, which is this is part of that report submitted, is B and C, the level of service, which is acceptable level of service in the road. So what we do, and that's what they're looking for, to provide that minimum information, but we are late to submit it. When we go into the PD, we're going to submit extensive, detailed analysis in that regard, which is reviewed by everybody. And one of the things that in the study we provide mitigation to these additional trips. With the mitigation will be turn lane, most likely, a long-term lane will be provided into any access we're going to provide. Plus, there is Mulrennan Road is a substandard road, which means there is improvement required. When we submit to rezoning, we ask that we are not asking for any waiver, and we're going to do all the improvement required, which is already submitted. All this material, of course, will be reviewed partially by the Planning Commission when get into for that PD.
All right, thank you. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Handy?
I'm not quite sure. I failed traffic analysis. However, I still, it kind of sticks with me that the Community and Infrastructure Department objected, and I think transportation is probably the biggest issue in that area. And especially now that we're told that that existing apartment complex is expanding, the Valrico station, that just gives me pause. So I would side with the same objection that was presented because of the lack of transportation analysis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Handy. Was there any more comments or discussion on this item from the commissioners? I see no lights in the room. I'm not seeing any hands raised on the WebEx, so I'll go ahead and close the public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Anyone? Commissioner Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we find Hccpa 21-19 consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and that we go ahead and pass that recommendation along to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration.
Second.
All right. I have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Bernstein, a second to that motion by Commissioner Powell. Is there any more discussion or comments from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any, I'll ask the clerk to do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Dix?
Yes.
Handy?
No.
Linkus?
Yes.
Marino?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Handy voted no.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have 2F, action item 2F, Htcpa 21-20B, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, 1000 Friends of Florida version of a property rights element for the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. And the presenter is Mr. Mark Hudson.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Great. This may be a little bit of deja vu for the Commission, since we've talked about this issue a couple months ago in your August meeting. But we had a workshop with the Board of County Commissioners with our previous version of their required property rights element. And they asked us to develop an alternative version based on a model element that was provided by the 1000 Friends of Florida. Just to give you a little bit of status report on the other jurisdictions, the original element that we developed complied with the minimal requirements of House Bill 59 and was recommended to us by the Department of Economic Opportunity to basically address the issues that are in the legislation and not to go any further, at least in the initial phase, to be sure that we're able to complete that work and get that to them in a timely manner and brought back before each of the jurisdictions. The 3 municipalities have transmitted that version of the element to the Department of Economic Opportunity, and now it's under their evaluation. Just to remind you, the reason for this legislation from the legislature was to ensure property rights are considered in the local decision-making processes. And also to remind you that the penalty for not progressing and approving the element in a timely manner is that it affects the timelines of approval of all public and private plan amendments that were initiated after July 1st of this year. So we did look at the model element on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. We did bring that back to them at a subsequent workshop, and they were pleased and asked us to move forward with some very minor edits to it. But it's basically broken down into 3 objectives. And the first one, Goal 1, Objective 1, and Policy 1.1 to 1.4 identifies the specific property rights that will be respected by Hillsborough County. Now, this is very similar to the element that was provided to you a couple months ago and meets those minimum requirements of House Bill 59. And I won't go into that in any further detail since you're very familiar with that from our past presentation. The next objective, Objective 2 in Policy 2.1 to 2.4, again goes further than the legislation required. It identifies the rights of people to participate in the decisions that affect the lives and property of Hillsborough County. Now that objective and policies is for the most part already addressed not only in Hillsborough County, but the municipalities as well. Their Plan Amendment Procedures Manual and their Land Development Code. Though it seems at this point the Board of County Commissioners' desire is to codify this actually within their comprehensive plan. Some other aspects dealing with this objective and these policies in this section, it does limit the actions required with this section and the decisions that it relates to plan amendments and zonings. The Thousand Friends of Florida actually looked at other decisions like variances and development orders, which are typically less sensitive and less far-reaching than plan amendments and rezonings. And our staff felt that that was already adequately addressed in Hillsborough County's Land Development Code. So we didn't propose to elevate those decisions to that level. The Thousand Friends of Florida version also referred to affected persons that could participate in these decision-making processes. We felt that that was too narrow, so we broadened that to interested party. We wouldn't want to preclude someone from participating in a discussion on a plan amendment, particularly a map amendment, if they were just slightly outside the affected area. And that's why we broadened the scope of those who could participate in that discussion. And the Board of County Commissioners did receive this very favorably. There is some, in the Thousand Friends of Florida, model elements and very specific requirements as far as permitted speaking times. All plan amendments are a little bit different number of people attend, the amount of material to cover. And we, in working with the county staff, modified that language to continue to allow the discretion for permitted speaking times to be allotted based on the parameters of each plan amendment being heard before either the Planning Commission or Board of County Commissioners. But I do want to emphasize that there are policies in there that ensures that people can participate and speak and be heard. Also, there is a link that has been developed and required by a policy concerning the hearing notice requirements for adjacent property owners. And this goes directly back to the Plan Amendment Procedures Manual, Land Development Code. So as you see review the conference plan, you understand that there's a link and you can go to those documents to figure out what the requirements are and the parameters are for those adjacent property owner notices. The Thousand Friends of Florida version did not note some additional mechanisms to get the word out about a public hearing and to encourage participation, such as signage, legal advertisements, the placement of notices on the websites of Hillsborough County. So we added those, which were not initially noted in that model element, but we felt there were important mechanisms to encourage public participation. Also, there was language concerning participation and requirements for pre-application meetings. Those tend to be somewhat dry affairs. Staff goes over with the applicant timelines, required fees, additional work they have to do as far as interaction with other agencies. And we felt it would be more meaningful and appropriate to replace that language or modify that language to require the applicant have a neighborhood meeting with the residents in the area to allow the applicant and the adjacent property owners to have a meaningful dialogue before they appear before the Planning Commission, Board of County Commissioners. And that will, of course, help in any potential misunderstandings of what the applicant is trying to accomplish and maybe alleviate some of the concerns prior to those hearings of the adjacent property owners. Finally, the last objective and policies 3.1 and 3.2 deal with how these local decision-making processes are conducted, how the votes are to be carried out. And this is, of course, with Objective 3 and policies 3.1 to 3.3. In the county, it's requiring a majority plus one for plan amendments, and at least 4 affirmative votes to approve or deny as zoning. Now, that's slightly different than what is today. Today, the Board of County Commissioners has to have a majority plus one vote for a map amendment, but also for a text amendment that increases the number of residential units or increases the intensity of the project. That is today. Now, if this was approved by the Board of County Commissioners, it would be a majority plus one to approve any map amendment or text amendment. And finally, there's some language that has been added to ensure that materials are available for public review and that there's a certain time frame where the applicant has the opportunity prior to the meeting and any materials that were submitted before the hearing that the adjacent property owners didn't have access to or could not review would need to be made available prior to actually conducting the public hearing. The timeline that we're looking at for this alternative version and also the previous version that you've already looked at, of course, we're here to garner your recommendation today for this particular 1,000 Friends of Florida version of the property rights element. We have a transmittal hearing scheduled with the Board of County Commissioners on October 21st. And then we expect them to give us direction as far as which version they wish us to transmit to the state, and then, of course, back for their final consideration on December 9th. And with that, Planning Commission staff recommends that Hccpa 21-20-B be found consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and to forward this recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Commissioner Dix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hudson, I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly. We went through not too long ago and made adjustments.
Oh, wait, hang on, Commissioner Dix. I'm sorry, I'm out of order. It's public comment right now.
I thought I could ask him a question after he made his presentation.
I guess you could. Okay, you can go ahead. You can continue.
Because I really just wanted to narrow, I just really wanted to narrow the issue down, at least in my feeble brain. And that is, I just wanted to make sure that I've got clarity from you, Mr. Hudson. A few meetings back, we went through and we made modifications and adjustments to all 3 of the cities and the county insofar as the changes that was mandated by the state legislation. That's the first issue, and I want to make sure I'm right in understanding that. And then the second issue is all 3 of the cities, Tampa, Plant City, and Temple Terrace, have passed that, as well as we recommended that same exact verbatim language to the county. And so if we were to adopt this, the county, which would only be the rural portion of the county, not the portion of the county that is in the 3 cities, only the rural portion of the county would be subject to these new revised rules. Is that correct?
If the cities adopt the plan amendments, procedures manual, the property rights elements that have been transmitted to the state, and the Board of County Commissioners selects the 1,000 Friends of Florida version that we developed for them, that would be a correct statement. And
then that would increase the time process of those matters that have been considered subsequent from our initial assessment until this one, too, right?
Could you repeat the question for me, Commissioner?
Well, it seems like we've already passed some map or land use amendments that may have to be reviewed subsequent to this if we were to change this from what we had originally suggested.
Most of the procedures that are in this version are already in place. Now, there are some additional ones that new plan amendments that come in once they were adopted, if the Board of County Commissioners so chooses, the applicant would have some additional hurdles to bear, one being conducting a neighborhood meeting and meeting with the adjacent property owners. From staff's perspective, the impacts would be quite limited.
Okay, thanks. And Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to clear it up. I have comments, but I wanted those questions.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Ornita, did you have something to add?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that anything that is adopted in the private property rights element would not be effective or apply to any amendments until after the effective date of the amendment. So the things that are in the queue now would not be impacted by these changes. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
All right. All right. I will go back now to the public comment, see who signed up for public comments on this one. We got a couple names here. First, I guess I'll just go through the list. Nicole Neugebauer. Is Nicole Neugebauer on the line?
Yes, I am.
Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Neugebauer, and I'm a land use attorney. I'm here tonight to ask that you carefully review the proposed property rights element and evaluate its consistency with the intent of House Bill 59. House Bill 59 states that the legislative intent is for governmental entities to respect judicially acknowledged and constitutionally protected private property rights. The legislator required a property rights element to ensure that private property rights are considered in local decision-making. There seems to be a disconnect between the intent of House Bill 59 and the proposed property rights element. While a small handful of property owner protections were added, procedural protections for people other than property owners have also been included. While these procedural protections, like a voting requirement or a right for the public to access records, might be true, it is not appropriate to pass those amendments under the umbrella of the proposed property rights element. With that, I respectfully request that you either find the proposed property rights element inconsistent as written, or recommend the board only consider the model property rights element proposed by the legislator. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up on the list, we have Jacob Kramer. Is Mr. Kramer with us?
Jake, can you hear us? You're unmuted. Mr. Kramer?
Can you hear me?
Jerry seems to respond. Jake, can you hear us?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yep, got you there.
I apologize. I'm sorry. It's getting late here. This is Jake Kramer. I'm a land use attorney, and I'm on the board of Hillsborough County Farm Bureau. The agriculture community has some concerns about this draft element. One of the comments I heard tonight on another item was that there are times when really the municipalities and the county should be in alignment on public policy. And I would suggest to you that this is one of those times. Hillsborough County is actually the only jurisdiction that I'm aware of. There may be some others, but out of the jurisdictions I'm tracking, Hillsborough is the only one to be considering adopting elements of the Thousand Friends of Florida model element. And the reason why most are not doing that is that it's risky business. If the state decides to reject parts of this element, then all other comp plan amendments will have to be put on pause as a penalty. I would like to thank staff. They heard our concerns and they were able to make some tweaks to this language, and I thank them for that. But I think that this really brings in some major policy changes, especially the supermajority voting requirement. That's really something that has not been workshopped with the public. It has not been discussed. And, you know, for example, the WVR2 and RP2 community plans that are being reviewed now, in the future, those would require a supermajority vote. And I think it deserves more serious consideration than simply being dropped into this element at the last minute in such a rush. So with that, I would ask that you reject these additions and recommend that the board adopt the property rights element that you all moved forward with several weeks ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. All right. Next up, we have an Aaron Rose.
Aaron Rose did not join the meeting tonight.
All right. Moving on to Travis Council.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Travis Council. I'm also a member of the Board of Farm Bureau. My comments will be brief. As a lifelong resident and fourth generation Hillsborough County landowner, I have concerns with the changes being considered to the property rights element of the comp plan with the addition of the 1,000 Friends of Florida language. I hear from the BOCC regularly that they support ag in the county. These changes do not support our rights as property owners, and they do not support ag. The language, in fact, does more to violate the rights of property owners than to protect them. I fully agree with the statements of the two last speakers from the public. I recommend the state statute as written. I don't find the current language compliant with HB 59. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have one more person sign up, Mr. Reed Fishbach.
Yes, good evening. I was a little confused as reading through these documents, through the House bill and the comprehensive plan amendment, because it did add so much more information than was required in the House bill. This does give landowners a lot of concern. You know, we've been through a lot of comprehensive plan changes this year, or discussing a lot of changes, especially RP2, WDR2. They're extremely complicated. We're still trying to figure them out on what they mean to property owners. And now it seems that as those may be potentially getting locked in, that they'll be harder to edit any of the unintended consequences from the comprehensive plan updates that are currently going on that are exempt from this policy. I would kindly request that you recommend to the BOCC that they only adopt what is required by the new state legislation. I think there's a good chance for us to work together on a lot of policies, but this one, I don't know that we need to take it any further than what is required. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all we have signed up for public comments on this one. So I will turn it back over to Mr. Hudson, I guess, to do for a rebuttal. I mean, technically, he's the applicant.
Well, I would just only mention that the previous version that we brought to you in August, based on our discussions with the Department of Economic Opportunity, met the minimal requirements of House Bill 59 and went no further. When we went to that workshop with the Board of County Commissioners with that version, we were instructed to work with the 1,000 Friends of Florida model element, adapt it for Hillsborough County, and bring it back for their consideration and review it for consistency with their comprehensive plan. So we brought this back based on the direction that we received at that workshop from the Board of County Commissioners. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a timeline and reason why we're back here talking about this same issue a second time.
Thank you. All right, turning it over to the commissioners. Are there any comments? Commissioner Linkus, yes, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I enjoyed hearing about some of the modifications that were presented. I think some of the decisions, such as calling it a neighborhood meeting and specifically addressing the rights of the community, are critical, that are really responsive to exactly the kinds of issues that we've talked about here today. Planning is a balancing of private property rights as well as the community's interests, and the decisions on private land affect more than just that private property owner. I know as an academic, we look at a lot of the trends and kind of theory around property rights, and although property rights are incredibly important and already well protected in our provisions, there's increasing discussion about the importance of things like human rights and community rights and natural resources and the rights that are associated with those. And I appreciate the balancing and the sort of forward thinking that is attentive to what our community is interested here, that are expressed in the additions here. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Linkus. Commissioner Marino.
Thank you. I'm sympathetic to the changes and the 1,000 Friends of Florida, some of the language that they've used and their other materials and what staff has put together. I'm concerned though about putting something forward to DEO when we don't have an answer on whether or not, I believe Mark said 3 other counties have done the same thing with the 1,000 Friends of Florida. We don't know yet if those are approved. Going back to July, I feel like DEO has been intentionally vague about what type of edits they would accept. So I really believe that the best step going forward is to approve as is, like we did for the 3 cities, and then, come back at a later date, whether it be a year or 6 months from now or whenever, and see if there's additional edits to be made. I just have a concern that, and maybe this isn't the best comparison, but, we passed a referendum in this county to tax ourselves to build a transportation project as we were allowed to by the state constitution. And then the legislature said, actually, no, we tell you what you can and can't do. And that was backed up by the Supreme Court. The staff perspective, I think, is accurate. But if, 280,000 people voting in the affirmative to tax themselves wasn't enough of a cause to justify public policy, I don't know how staff's opinion and then the opinion of the BOCC is going to carry if DEO says, nope, we don't like it, and now we've put projects in jeopardy because of that. So I agree with the philosophy put forward, but I can't approve something when I think the legislature has already told us you either accept this or you don't.
Thank you, Commissioner Marino. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To echo Commissioner Marino's point, I have the exact same concern, and I think I could maybe even take it a little step further. Some of the items that have been proposed here, such as broadening the term to interested party, I don't think that's been defined as what an interested party would be. Is that correct?
Interested party is a very broad term. Basically, it would not exclude anyone from participating in a public hearing, whether they're a great distance from the site or even in an adjacent county. So it's a very broad term, not to exclude anyone.
Right. So 1 billion people in China could have a problem with it, want to be an interested party. That's my point is anyone, could certainly all of a sudden just, sign up. No, would 1 billion people do that? Absolutely not. But that's just in theory, that actually could be a real thing. And I would think that the state legislature, given that it's so broad and it's not defined, could potentially view it maybe in the same context. If it was maybe a little more confined, still broad, I could maybe get on board with it. But just for anyone in the world to have a problem with it, or want it to be an interested party, I don't think that that's something that's great. And then the second question I had was on policy, was it 3.1? I didn't really understand the need for requires an affirmative vote of at least a majority plus 1 for plan amendments, or at least 4 affirmative votes to approve or deny rezoning. I'm reading that as it takes 5 votes to approve and 5 votes to deny. So what happens if you don't get the 5 votes?
Well, it would, if you don't get the 5 votes, the amendment would fail. It would be found, it would not be approved. Of course, it's the members that are present in case of the plan amendment, and you have to have, instead of having a simple majority, you would have to have that majority plus 1.
Okay, but it's saying to approve or deny, so that's...
Yes, that's in relationship to the zoning, and that is existing county board of county commissioner policy, that if they don't have 4 votes one way or the other, the item gets continued until they do, basically.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you.
I have a question. Is there any place inside our comprehensive plan documents now where this independent agency seeks to tell a government body how they should be voting by supermajority or otherwise?
When you're speaking of the elected body, not the appointed body, being the planning commission?
Yeah, where we tell the elected body how they should be voting.
Right. I am not aware of any place in the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan where that is mentioned, but I defer to Ms. Zornita or Ms. Mills if they are aware of any.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark. I'm not aware of anywhere in the county's comprehensive plan where they articulate any voting requirements.
Well, being my past warnings about this, trying to put stuff in the policy documents to control the elected officials and other parts of the county is something that I don't like, so I really can't support this one. I mean, I'm not going to make any sort of alternate motions, but this gives me pause. This gives me real pause and real interfere to see things like this sliding by unnoticed, or looked at by lawyers and said nothing about. I'll hold my peace after that and turn it back over to the commissioners for more comments on this item. Commissioner Dix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be very specific to our staff, Mr. Hudson, Ms. Zornita, et cetera. I think y'all have done just an outstanding job with a contentious issue, and I respect that, and I want you to know that I appreciate the balancing act that y'all have done. It is quite outstanding as always, so that's a compliment. But I do go back to my firm belief, as the chairman just said, and not leaping too far out into the void on this. I mean, the state was pretty straightforward in that they told us what they wanted. We adopted that, and I do think there should be consistency throughout the entire county, not just having the rural portion, the unincorporated portion of the county, having a distinct provision separate from those of the cities. So I think, Mr. Chairman, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that actually Mr. Moreno was putting that in the form of a motion of inconsistency, and if he was, then I'm going to second that. So thank you.
Was that an inconsistency motion, Mr. Moreno?
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, before you answer, let me ask Ms. Zornita, is there any other way we could handle this besides killing this thing here in front of us tonight? Because obviously there's a larger issue at hand that there's things tied to this moving forward, and it's kind of
Well, a couple of things. One, the BOCC asked us to bring back basically an alternative. So we will be presenting both versions to the Board of County Commissioners, allowing them ultimately to decide how they want to move forward. I would remind the Planning Commission that your vote tonight is not on whether or not you like it or think it's the right thing to do, but whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. Our assessment as staff was that with the additional language, it still is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I guess I would ask for some help in whatever motion you make if it's inconsistent to identify, or if you need me to help you identify, I can try to. But, there weren't a lot of policies that spoke really either way, quite honestly, in the comprehensive plan on this issue. But we do need a basis for the inconsistency. So the alternative would be, I guess, to pair your motion with some sort of letter like you did on the other one, articulating the concerns.
Or to allow a motion for consistency, which you might get from this board, and then those of us who think that that's not appropriate would find it inconsistent.
Right. Sure.
Okay. That takes you off the spot.
Yeah. Can I ask Melissa a question? So I think you're right. You're absolutely right. But so my question then is and clarify this, and maybe Tracy can clarify this too. Our powers are created in part through state statute.
Yes, entirely through state statute.
So if
yes.
the legislature says your comprehensive plan has to have this element, and this element has to be what we have mandated, because we don't know if those other 3 counties are approved yet.
Sure.
So and I don't know if that's what would deem this to be inconsistent, but my concern is that if we are to pass something that is consistent with our comprehensive plan, it's in fact inconsistent because the state is telling us you have to have this as written. And we don't have any sort of legal documentation from the state of Florida that says what you have provided to us is legitimate. I mean, the Thousand Friends of Florida, they've been successful in getting 3 counties to apply this, this change in language. And maybe it's not exact to what we have in Hillsborough County, but they don't have approval yet. So we're going to be one of 4 counties essentially creating a legal challenge. And so that's my concern, that, we're going against, in a sense, we're going against the comp plan by not doing what the legislature has told us to do.
Right. So understanding that is your concern, there are at least Objective 9 and Policy 9.2 of the future land use element refer to being consistent with state statute. I could also take a look at the intergovernmental coordination element, and there might be some policies in there that discuss being consistent with state law. I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard to know what will happen if DEO was to receive the element with the additional provisions in it. I mean, this has to be transmitted to the state for their review before it's adopted. The BOCC can make changes in response to the state's comments at the adoption phase. That is a normal part of the process. So if the state, so it wouldn't necessarily hold up the time frame if the state said Objective 3 is inconsistent with state statute. The BOCC could just remove that and adopt it without it. Now, if they chose not to remove it, then that might end us up in a legal challenge. But that's part of the purpose of the process of the plan amendment being transmitted to the state for review before it is adopted. I hope that answered.
I'm not sure if that answered, but I'm going to let Commissioner Linkus speak.
I guess I just have a follow-up question because I haven't followed this perhaps as closely as I could have. Is there something in the state statute that says that the Thousand Friends of Florida language needs to be adopted verbatim?
No, they're
Actually,
in the.
The only language that is required to be adopted is what was in the first section of the Thousand Friends of Florida, also in the language that was provided in the previous version to you back in August. Basically, Objective 2 in its policies and Objective 3 in its policies is above and beyond what's required by the legislation. There's nothing that says you can't go further. We did have discussions with DEO previous to this to come up with the original proposal, and their advice to us was to stick to the language as closely as possible, and if you want to do any additional changes, do that in the second phase. We did bring that issue to the Board of County Commissioners and explain that to them, that was DEO's recommendation, but at that time they directed staff to move forward and develop an alternative version based on the Thousand Friends of Florida with our edits to it to make it more adapted to how we operate in Hillsborough County.
I understand. Thank you for the clarification. So I guess, I did have to miss the August meeting, so I'm playing catch up here in my understanding of this. It sounds as though there are some very practical concerns about moving ahead with the existing language, but I would like to say I continue to commend the county for looking for ways to tailor this to what this community's interests are as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Handy.
Thank you. I actually agree with Commissioner Linkos's initial comments that I thought it was a very creative way we were asked to address property rights, and we did so in a way that would cover not just the private property owner applicant, but also the affected community, which our comp plan asks for us to do. Therefore, I don't see where it might be inconsistent. As Melissa said, it appears to me to be consistent with our comp plan, and I also personally find it to be a really good idea because it should involve the neighborhood. It should involve the community, and we should, if we are truly addressing property rights, we need to be addressing property rights of everyone that is interested, perhaps if I was going to say affected, but I guess is interested, because sometimes the word affected means that you have to prove that you're affected and how the action might affect you. So I'm assuming that's why the interested parties was chosen. But I think that it was a creative way of putting those two concepts together. So I like it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. Commissioner Bernstein.
Yeah, I've struggled because I'm sympathetic with all the very well-reasoned discussion I've heard so far, but I keep coming back to this notion that if I can't identify an element of this that's inconsistent, and I'm struggling to find that I think for me, I feel best served by trying to narrowly confine the role of this body and not confuse it perhaps with the duties that our Board of County Commissioner may ultimately have to undertake if we refer a recommendation, whatever it may be, for their consideration. My inclination for that reason is going to be to find that this is consistent with a comprehensive plan until somebody can tell me otherwise, regardless of any potential legal quagmire or other quagmire this could generate going forward, and trust that the County Commission, their wisdom, will make the right call. I also think that if there's a desire to send a message to the Commission to help them make the right decision under these circumstances, I feel a little more comfortable doing so, personally, with a positive vote on consistency than a negative one, at least until someone can point to something that is inconsistent on the basis of something more than the possibility that it could undo some important work we've done here.
Comments, Commissioner Bernstein. Commissioner Dix, yes, please.
Well, it's not consistent in the requirement that it be in compliance with state law, because I think that the state may take the approach that it is overreaching. And so we have in our comp plan, that I can't refer to the numbers, at 9.2 or something like that, that says that to be found consistent, it must also be in compliance with the state mandate.
But I guess I appreciate that, Commissioner Dix, but I mean, the fact that it might be struck down doesn't necessarily, give me enough to go on. I mean, there's any number of things I suspect that we do in any given month that could ultimately be deemed overreaching by the state. I'm not finding anything directly in conflict with the comprehensive plan, and I think that's our charge today. You're right. There is a policy provision, as I recall, that constrains us to comply with state law. But I still haven't heard anything that suggests that this departs from it.
Oh, Commissioner Powell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, to piggyback off of what my fellow commissioner just brought up, I mean, where in the comprehensive plan, does it, mention, or where is it consistent that any interested party, I don't think we actually have the term interested, correct? I mean, we're adding that, in. So we're adding a new element that, hasn't been there. And I think it's not beyond, reason to foresee a future problem where, someone, not to use my China reference, but, someone in a different part of the state, wants to say that they are an interested party. And then, you could be looking at potentially dragging out, rezoning and hearings, because it would be, you're opening yourself up to, instead of having maybe 100 people, who are affected potentially by something, now you can have thousands or tens of thousands of people, registering, and, hearings are going to take, potentially, for forever. If it's a really big, political issue, I could see that, actually happening. So like just from that aspect alone, I think that that's something to look at to show that it's not consistent with, I don't know why, if someone is, imagine someone talking about like a community plan. Why would someone from Miami, be an interested party or be able to have, input on, Waimama Community Village Plan? So.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Handy.
Well, thank you. I can think of lots of reasons why someone from Miami might be an interested party, and I don't see why the more the merrier. I mean, I know that is going to throw a wrench into the process and so forth, but if there is, if they do have a valid concern over something that could result from a certain rezoning, I think it should be heard. Maybe the only person in Miami who studies the last rare Florida bonamia flower that's going to be rezoned in a tract in Waimama is the person that's making that objection. I don't know why we would want to narrow that focus. And I don't think that the state, I agree with my fellow commissioner here, that the state can rule after we have, but for us to be doing what they've requested and yet take it a step further, I still find that consistent with what this community and what the comp plan stands for.
Well, an interested party is not considered to be someone who is just interested in the goings-on of a jurisdiction far away. A person who has a curiosity is an interested person or an interested party, but they don't have any vested interest in a property right as a matter of law. And that's the issue here.
All right, I have a question. If I'm to I think I gained a little understanding there in the middle of all this. So we have an A, which is what we sent before, which is just what the state sent us down to put forward. And then we're going to, before us, which we already approved, and before us we have a B now that we could either find consistent or inconsistent and then move, and then they'll both go to the Board of County Commissioners as A and B for them to do with what they like.
Yes.
That is correct. I will say that the previous one you heard was 21-20. There was no A on it because we didn't realize that the Board of County Commissioners would like alternative version. So it would be HCCPA 21-20, and then this one is 21-20-B.
And what was the vote on A? Does anyone remember?
It was unanimous. I don't remember the exact number of commissioners that were present, but it was unanimous.
All right. That's just checking. Back to the commissioners. Let's continue on. Are there any more comments from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Marino.
I just want to make 2 points, and we have attorneys here, so you're smarter on this than I am. So it's Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes that's being amended. And so the section reads, in addition to requirements of subsections 1 through 5, the comprehensive plan shall include the following elements, and then it goes into the property rights element. And the fact that it's taken straight out of the legislation and dropped into the Florida statutes is what gives me concern, because we're essentially editing what is in the Florida statutes. And then the last point I want to add too, in terms of interested parties and non-interested parties, this is a big state. When the Hillsborough County referendum was put forth before the state Supreme Court, the Florida House filed a brief in opposition to it, and the Florida House at that time was led by a representative from Miami. So, we have $500 million sitting in a bank account someplace while we still continue to have transportation problems. And meanwhile, here where, our BOCC may be putting forward an initiative that is going to run into the same roadblock. But in this case, we have projects that have already been approved or to be approved with the element that we've already approved. So that's why I just go back to, we have to stick with what the legislature told us to approve, even if we philosophically agree with it. And I think where is inconsistent is the fact that in Chapter 163, the legislature is amending it to include this language, which, while it is what staff has prepared, and I think they've done a good job with it, it's not exactly as written. So until we have word that those 3 other counties, their edited versions with the 1,000 Friends of Florida, those were approved. If they are, then we can go back, as Mark indicated, and maybe do a second version of this. But in the meantime, let's just pass what we've been asked to pass and make sure these projects keep going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Marino, for your comments. Is there anybody else? Commissioner Bernstein.
I was just going to ask, I mean, to your point, Commissioner Marino, you're exactly right. It ultimately can come down to interpreting language from a legal perspective. Is our general counsel, Mr. Robin, on the line? If we were to, it may be an unfair question, but we do have the benefit of legal counsel here. I wonder if it's appropriate to at least get his opinion in a public setting as to, whether this language is sufficiently faithful to the statutory language, and or whether we have a suitable option, as Commissioner Marino suggested, which is to cling to a strict interpretation of the language, which, as he points out, seems to be at least somewhat inconsistent with what's in front of us today.
Thank you, Commissioners. This presents a very unusual situation, as you know and can tell. There have been any number of plan amendments over the years that have been required by changes in the statute, or even the first plan amendment was required by a brand new statute. I think as long as you put your justification on the record or the decision that you make, that either decision is supportable. And I won't bother to try and repeat the various arguments or try to add to those. I think the board members have made some very eloquent and persuasive observations. And what the board really needs to do is to make a decision here.
Thank you, Mr. Robin. All right. And with that said, not seeing any more lights on in the room and no hands being raised online, I will close public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Dix.
No.
Bernstein, Commissioner Bernstein.
I rarely do this. I'm going to make a motion and invite all my fellow commissioners to see if we can improve it. But I'm going to start the process, having been duly persuaded by my fellow Commissioner Marino that perhaps the smarter approach is to find inconsistency. And so I'd like to frame the motion as follows. I move that we find Hccpa 21-20B inconsistent with the goals, policies, and objectives of the future Hillsborough comprehensive plan on the basis that it fails to sufficiently and faithfully track the applicable statutory language that ostensibly gave rise to this provision. And until such time as it does, this honorable body is reluctant to vote in favor of a consistency finding.
Yeah. And you could, if you wanted to, add that portion in our comp plan. I think it's 9.2.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mrs. Ornita what that was. It says we have to be faithful to the state law. I think that's what he's referencing.
It's Objective 9 and Policy 9.2.
All right, so we have an inconsistency finding based on Objective 9 and Policy 9.2 by Commissioner Bernstein, and then a second to that. I heard like 12 of them, so Commissioner Marino seconded that. Is there any more discussion? You had a comment, Mr. Commissioner Dix? No. Is there any more discussion or comments from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any. I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Dix?
Yes.
Handy?
No.
Linkus?
No.
Marino?
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-2. Commissioners Handy and Linkus voted no.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Dix.
Mr. Chairman, again, point of order, only because, again, it's most likely my last meeting that I said like it was last time. And I'm here because Plant City has not yet appointed a new commissioner, but I think they're close. But I want to commend all of you, including those that, you know, I mean, not all of us agreed, but what a healthy debate that was. It was very respectful. It was, you know, it was healthy, and it reached a consensus. And I've been on many, in so many years of public service, where I've been on many occasions where it's 5-1 or 7-1 or whatever, you know, I was the only one out or whatever. But those kinds of votes, we don't always have to be unanimous, but as long as they're respectful and they're healthy, I just think that's so forward thinking, and this is going to be a great body to move forward. So thank you for letting me serve and come back tonight.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. All right, that is it for us for tonight. Thank all staff for the presentations and the information. Thank you to the commissioners and applicants and everyone for their time. This meeting is adjourned at 8:45. Everyone have a good night.